Okay, hello, Aurora. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So, I wanted to talk about your healing journey today because I first have witnessed all of your amazingness through all of your videos, which you are prolific at posting every single week. You're so generous with sharing all of your amazing insights and lessons. Thank you so much. And the more I have learned about you as a person in person, is that you have gone through a long journey to be able to be so eloquent and well spoken and coherent as today. I know you have spoken about your epilepsy and your seizures and your injuries to your language centers when you first came in to Debbie as a walk in. So that is amazing to me because I would never know. So I would love to hear about your experience and what you went through and how you healed yourself. So we could all do the same.
This is actually one of the best compliments you could ever give to me, that you don't even know that I have brain injury and that's how well I'm compensating. Because I mean, just really thank you for that. And I will tell you, because I have extensive brain damage. Like that's literally what is this? I call it my body now, but this body that I'm in, because I've been here for over 20 years, has or had extensive brain damage, extensive neurological damage. It was enough for that to cause the death of the previous person who is in this body. So just comprehend that. And it was extensive through like all different areas of the brain. So it wasn't just, like if a person, whatever, is hit in the head with a baseball or something like that, like they might have one area that is harmed. But it was really like it involved a lot of the areas of my brain and a lot of aspects of muscular skeletal coordination and posture and walking and the ability to speak and express myself, and so much other stuff about cognitive processing and even how I look at the world. Like um, I had to do a lot of work in healing my body to be able to fully inhabit my body and to be as like able and functional as I am now. So it's a great compliment when you say that you don't even know or notice it, because I've done a lot of work, but just know like that I am very non-neurotypical. Like in order for words to actually come out of my mouth, like they have to go through this wild detour system inside of my brain, but they do eventually make it to my mouth. But that's why people in my life who know me, they know like if you put me under stress or ask me to do too many things at once, like that's the first thing that happens. Like the mouth short circuits and I will just be not either choosing the wrong words or just be like nonverbal. But that's also, whatever. We can have many funny Aurora stories about the strange things how I get through life. Yeah, including walking on a treadmill.
I don't know anyone who can walk on the treadmill at the same time as teaching about the secrets of the universe and how the molecular structures of plants work. So I think you outdo a lot of people with your so-called limitations. And by the way, you when you apologize for all of your grammatical errors, it's just so hilarious because what you write is just so more profound than whatever you perceive as errors. So I always just laugh whenever you apologize because you're like, oh, Rory, you don't even know.
That makes me feel really good. You're really sweet. And thank you. It's very uplifting to me because I will tell you, I have a genuine insecurity about really my written skills. My written language skills are still not that perfect. Like I've done a lot of work to be able to be more articulate with my words and really practiced and really, had to figure out how to find the right words and, um, speak in a smooth way through my class and not stumble over things so much. It was a real issue in sharing my story when I first came here. Like I was not verbally articulate at all and had a lot of problems. But my spelling is still very bad, and I still transpose a lot of letters, and my grammar is terrible. And so, thank you for loving me as I am. Because when I write emails and send things out, like you notice these, but you know that I'm intelligent. Like if I share on a deeper level. That was actually one of the most difficult things when I first came here. So I'm Aurora. Aurora, I come here with all this cosmic information, but I come into a body that has a lot of neurological damage and a lot of deficits in like terms of self-expression. And I think that the people around me in my life at that time couldn't see and know and recognize my intelligence. And it had an impact on me because I had all of this good stuff inside and didn't know how to say it or know how to get it out there. So literally, I had to go through a whole not only healing process of my physical body, but a transformational process of like figuring out how to express myself. And in the first few years that I was here, I mean, I really like only spoke in very broken sentences and did not have a good ability to either like talk about my feeling state or to advocate for myself or to tell people what I was thinking or feeling inside. And mostly in those years, what I did was I just communicated with like drawings. I did all of these notebooks and all of these drawings, and I would just show them to people. And they were all like abstract drawings, like my line drawings and my diagrams. And people would just be like, like they did not know what I was talking about, and I was trying to communicate through these abstractions. So that I know now it's a funny Aurora story, but I was so serious. I was just like, oh, like I'm here to share information with humanity, but I don't really know how to do it through words. So I'll just draw these pictures, and I was like, I'm sure they'll get it. And no, nobody got it, and people looked at me very strangely. So then I realized like having verbal skills was really crucial, and I was gonna have to figure it out somehow. And that was a whole like multi-year long journey to kind of learn vocabulary words. Like I didn't know the word harmonics. I didn't know these words. I had to learn them. So actually that's one of the cool things I can share with you. Like I've been very honest when I don't know something or know how to do something. I'm like, oh, like I don't know how to do this. I have to learn this. So I'm like, okay, like I don't know what the word for this is. It's just like when you go to a foreign country and you're like, like what is the here? Like I'll pick up a pen, like what's the word for this in your language, like you don't know what it is, and you just ask. It's very like bare bones, like you just get to the the essence of who you are. You're like, I just need to know what is the word for this and what is the word for this. So yes. And then also of course, because I taught myself a lot of things, like I taught myself a lot of things very wrong, and I learned like that is not right at all. So initially I kind of just figured it out by going along and kind of like playing by ear and listening to things, and then later on I became advanced enough to know how much I had mispresumed and taught myself incorrectly, and then I hopefully learned the right way to either structure something or say something or convey something. So now I'm much better at any of these things. And of course, as I'm sharing, and none of this is about self-diminishment. I'm just being really honest about my journey of what it is like to have a damaged language center, and then trying to really innovate and find some way to communicate who I am in the world. But the key point is I've always been intelligent and self-aware, even when I couldn't always connect those thoughts to words or to self-expression. So I hope that people will always kind of like give people the benefit of the doubt. If people aren't able to put something into words, but they can still be very present and very intelligent inside, to see if you can, connect with them, even if, because I think that people maybe presumed that I wasn't intelligent. And then I felt like I had a lot to prove to people in the early years that I was here, because I was like, they're not understanding these line drawings, and I'm not expressing myself effectively. And I think that they're all kind of like dismissing me or pushing me over to the side. So I felt a lot like I had to do something to kind of convince people like, there's somebody home, I'm here, and I'm intelligent. And but now, of course, I'm in a very different place in my life. Like now I've been teaching for 10 years, and many people know that I'm intelligent, and I don't feel like I have so much that I have to prove. But it was very different in the beginning years that I was here.
This is very fascinating to be able to hear yourself express this journey, because I know there are many people who either speak a different language or maybe have some sort of learning disability where they will never be able to express themselves fully or advocate for themselves. And you were able to perceive that during that time, to now where you're able to be like, this is how it was. So it's fascinating that you're able to share that journey with us. I have a question from the very beginning of your walk-in journey. So how is that different, you coming into an adult body as a walk-in, even though it was damaged, versus if a soul comes into a baby's body? What's the difference between those levels of awareness of the wisdom that you have and what you know and your self-awareness?
Such a good question. These are, of course, not official terms, but I've heard the term crawl in. Like I'm a walk-in. I came in chronological adulthood into a body that was like, fully formed. But I have heard the description of the term crawl in, meaning like maybe there might be a death during the gestational time of a person. And then it's not the same soul that was gestating, the little tiny body inside of their mother, but a different soul comes in and kind of like takes the project and runs with it and then is born. And actually, that's one of the first people that helped me and ministered to me in the early years that I was here as Aurora is someone who identifies as a crawl-in, that she was actually part of a set of twins. There was a mortality event and one of the twins died in the womb and it was considered a miscarriage, and then her mom didn't even know that she was still pregnant and then was very surprised to find out that she was still pregnant with my friend. But when my friend was born, she told me that she always felt very like she did not fit in, and she kind of knew that she was here on a mission. Like there were many different hallmarks that she was not the original soul. And she did a lot of similar things to me, but in childhood, in terms of like figuring out ways to fit in, because this is what she helped me to kind of comprehend being a walk-in, because I was busy trying to figure, like I told you I wore all denim all the time. And I was like, yep, like I'm fitting in. I'm being just like you guys. And she used to do very similar things where she would just be like, if someone asked her, like, what's your favorite musician? She would be like, what's the most popular, whoever's the most popular musician. Like she wouldn't know who's her favorite musician. She would be like, whatever is the right answer to fit in, that is who is my answer. And it's different than the regular alienation that, children or people might feel as they're developing, bless you, as they're forming their personality and, constructing themselves. It's just different. It's just definitely like being a person from another place. So yeah, so the distinction is a different soul than the original germinator of the body that started to make this project. And your body is customized to your soul. Like here in this world, they talk about it very much as like there's a disassociation from their bodies. People aren't really feeling invested in their bodies, but you all have to know that your body, you have created it and generated it as an expression of your soul and your consciousness, and your body is customized to you in the most wonderful way. And that's why it's actually very challenging and very difficult when you come here as a walk-in. It's like trying to fit into someone else's customized suit. Like actually everything doesn't fit perfectly. Like the sleeves are a little too long, or the waistline is just a little bit wide or something like that. Like these things don't fit perfectly. And so that's the distinction between like regular levels of human alienation or not feeling like you fit in, as opposed to really like you don't fit in your body and you're figuring out like how to get your arms and legs to move and integrate properly. So for me, I came into a body that's not only customized for someone else, for the original inhabitant, but had a lot of neurological damage, meaning a lot of the signals didn't go to where they needed to go to. And I had to get very creative with my flying rainbow lasagna, with my way of being able to use hyperdimensional signal transferring to be able to get signals like from my brain to my feet, or like from my left side to my right side, because I had a lot of damage in the cerebellum and other areas of the brain that are basically about motor control. And if I wasn't here, doing this type of fancy interdimensional footwork is the only way I can say it, like, constantly vibrating and jumping in these weird ways around my body. um my body would either have been like dead, a vegetable in bed, or really like not mobile, not definitely not able to walk, or to you know be active in the world, like a very diminished state. So yeah, the fact that I have always celebrated all, and I'm kind of like just going, I'm just extemporaneously talking here. I'm not even responding to your questions. I apologize for that. But I've always been kind of just like seeing what I can do with my body. Like it's been kind of like a project, like when you get a fixer upper and you're like, okay, like this is, definitely this part over here is definitely damaged and screwed up, but it's kind of like a little bit of a creative project. Like, let's see how much we can do with this. And so I've always, even though had challenges with my body and with limitations in my mobility, I always considered myself an athlete, where I would be like, okay, whatever body part I can use, I'm going to see how much I can do and then try to do a little bit more. Right. So there were actually many years where I had, because I had a spinal cord injury that was actually subsequent to the initial brain injury. So I had a bunch of things going on. I had the initial brain injury, and then in 2003 or so, I had an actual injury to my spinal cord that meant that even fewer signals went all the way down to my feet and my toes, and had even, more difficulties in doing regular tasks. But I would still be like, okay, like whatever I can do, let's see if I can do more of it. And I found ways to be able to do exercises or other things to cultivate my body and cultivate my strength and to grow. And of course, doing the flying rainbow lasagna also. So I would just be like, okay, like this is my starting point and I'll see what I can do. And I always felt so empowered and so good when I would be like, yeah, like I used to only be able to do whatever, like 10 of those, but now I can do 15 of those, or I could lift a weight of this heaviness, but now I can lift a weight of this heaviness. So yeah, I never kind of defined myself as being limited or not capable. I always recognized, though, that there were a lot of things that other people could do easily that I couldn't do easily. And so sometimes I had to learn how to advocate for myself and say, like, I can't do that, or I don't know how to do that, or that's not possible for me. But also, like, now I'm very good at doing everything. But when I first got here as a walk-in, also, like, I did not have the luxury of even being able to, like, have occupational and physical therapy and get, fixed up and get up to speed. Like, I had to kind of like hit the ground running and learn how to earn money and learn how to survive and learn how to do all these things. So I didn't have the opportunity to just spend some time like just in recovery and just in, even just learning about human society and integrating myself in human society. Like, I had to be like doing stuff on the fly and constructing myself at the same time. So I often pretended that I could do things even when I couldn't. Like, my eyesight is one example of that, because I needed to have a job and I worked at entry level positions, like nothing that was, a very good job. And in those positions, like, you can't always say like, I need this in order to be able to function well. You know what I mean? Like, those are usually the hardest jobs, and you have to kind of just do what they tell you to do. So yeah, I always had to kind of go along to get along, and I pretended that my eyesight was okay when my eyesight was totally not okay. So one of the things that had happened in the brain injury was literally overnight, I had lost a lot of my eyesight. Not that I had blackness around the edges, but I went from like requiring like 2 diopters, that's like mild nearsightedness, to 4 diopters. So it was doubly as blurry as it was, initially. And when you have 2 diopters, like, you can see pretty well, but like I cannot see without my glasses. I wear contact lenses so I can see. But I didn't have corrected vision for the first couple of years that I was here, because I didn't know how to advocate for myself. I didn't know how to go to an eye doctor and have my eyesight checked and get prescription lenses. But also I had monocular vision because I had a brain injury that was really affecting like one side of my face. And you guys might still see a little bit of asymmetry. You know what? Like I used to always wear my hair so that it kind of like went across the side of my face so that you wouldn't see it as much. Like I did a lot of things to compensate so people wouldn't know. But I still have some asymmetry. Like you can see one of my eyebrows is up here and one of my eyebrows is down here. It's because this side of my face, I used to have like a lot of muscular deficit and a lot of expression deficit there too. But things are a lot better now. But also, I used to not really see out of this eye. Like I had an eyeball in my eye, clearly, but I was not receiving the information from that side of my vision. So mostly I looked at the world through one eye, and the world looked very flat. I did not have good depth perception. And I had blurry vision and double vision. And like that, it's very hard to do things when you don't have focused vision. But I couldn't advocate and say to the people around me, like, my eyesight isn't good because they would be like, I will fire you from this job now. So I had to kind of like find a way to do what I needed to do, even though my eyesight wasn't very good. And so, I used my strengths. This is like, in that time of compensation before real healing, what I did was I have a great memory and I'm really good with memorizing things that are like visual. Like you can tell from my paintings and my pattern work, I'm really good with that. So with some of these jobs, like if I worked at a farmer stand and I had to know like how much are the green beans or how much are the squash over here, I couldn't see the little signs around, to be able to see like what things are per pound to charge the customer. So every morning I would walk around and I would look at the little tags like up close and be like, okay, green beans are $1.69 today. And the squash is, $2.69 today. And I would memorize all of that so that when the customers came to me, I would know how much to charge them. But also, this is a funny Aurora story. My math skills were still really, really bad. And we didn't have like a regular, like computerized, it was like all old fashioned. You had to add everything up in your brain. I was doing the math completely wrong, but I was trying. I was really trying. But I did not last very long at that position because eventually someone noticed, like, you are not doing math. Like, you are totally faking it. I was like, yes, that's correct. I was totally faking it. And so I did not stay at that job for very long. But that was, these are some of my many, many adventures. But then eventually, so I'll just give you positive closure on that anecdote. Eventually, I did get to a real eye doctor and have my eyesight tested and have my peripheral vision tested and get corrective eyeglasses and later contact lenses. And once I did that, like that's just been the same for 20 years. My eyesight hasn't changed. And I've been able to do a lot of neural integration. So now I have vision with depth. But for that didn't happen until like 2016 or so. So that was about 15 years of me living here where I really pretty much only looked at the world through one eye. So I did a lot of artwork and a lot of paintings and a lot of things just with the vision that I had. And not a lot of people knew that. And also I did drive a car, but I tried not to make driving the center of my life because like when you can't really tell how far away objects are, like it's a little bit dangerous and not that sensible to drive. So I drove like around town, but not big, long journeys. That came later as like my eyesight got better. But yeah, I had to do a lot of neurological healing and then also worked with healers to be able to kind of reintegrate that eye so I could see through both of my eyes. And also that was a big limiter in terms of when I would read printed materials. I really had challenges learning by reading a book or we didn't have that much. Like when I first came here, mostly things were still on books because now everything is like on a Kindle, on an iPad, on whatever. This is before those things were invented. And mostly I would just read the left-hand side of a page. Like if you gave me a book and I would just read the left-hand side of the, like, not even just like if there's two pages, just read this side. I would read like the left-hand side of the page. You know what I mean? Like I was only getting half. And I was a very slow reader also because of that. So yeah, not really that I would say I'm not that good of a reader. And I really didn't read books for pleasure because it was a very big challenge to be able to comprehend what I was looking at and make my eyes coordinate. But what I did start to find is that there was something called audiobooks that was still a thing, in the time that I came in when I had not that good eyesight. So I started to rent audiobooks from the library, and I used that as a way for me to be able to learn about things. So it's like trying to portray that, like, sometimes I had to be functional even when I wasn't functional, but I always found a way to kind of overcome what were my limitations and get done what I needed to get done anyway. But then now I have optimized, and now, like, my eyesight is so much better. And I remember the first time that I did read a book for pleasure, and I think it was like the Golden Compass or something like that. It was like a fun, like a fantasy book. And it was like, oh, like it's so nice. Like I can like see the whole entire page and kind of like, read the whole entire story. And not just kind of get half of the story. Like you get the gist of it. If you just read like half the page, like you get the gist of it, but not the whole entire thing. And that was maybe like 4 years ago. So yeah, reading for pleasure is very, very new for me.
Wow. You've been through a lot, Aurora. Um,
Yeah.
so you have shared with us different modalities like diet and detox protocols and how you have healed. Can you talk more about the people that have helped you heal and what helped you and who they were, or not, if you don't want to say names, that's fine. But what it
Yeah.
was about them that helped you.
Totally. It was so important for me not to be alone on my healing journey. The very first person that helped me was like in 2003. And that's this person that describes as a crawl-in. And it was important because the whole entire time that I've been here, I've had no filter and I've been very authentic. And I would tell people like, oh, yes, I'm an otherworldly visitor and I come from here and there. And this is what I am and what I'm doing. And not everybody could hear that and validate that from me, along with all of the other, like obvious neurological problems that I had going on in terms of like coordination and movement of my body. So I was really struggling, and I found this wonderful person who is in Woodstock, which is where I pretty much came in as a walk-in. And I told her my whole entire story with no filter. And she was one of the first people that validated me. And she said, like, you're not wrong, bad, damaged, or insane. You've been through like a spiritual initiation and you're a very psychic person. And she's the person who actually even showed me this book called ET 101, the handbook, that has the word walk-in in there. And she's like, it sounds like you're a walk-in. And that was itself was very liberating to even have a descriptive term that I could use. Like my back goes up. I'm like, I know who and what I am now. But because prior to that, I would tell people this is for real. I would walk up and I would introduce myself. I would say, hi, I'm Aurora. I'm a dead person. And they'd be like, oh, like you can't say that. That's wrong. Because it's true. I'd be like, yep, I went through the death journey and I came back and here I am. So they were like totally put off by that. And I learned like that's not accurate and people can't hear that. But the word walk-in worked for me. So even just that languaging was very liberating. But this lovely person is a body worker, and she did some, I would call it immediate triage, because I had had like not really any medical care for both the initial brain injury or the back injury that I had subsequently. And so she did some immediate care that was just like getting my brain connected to my spinal cord, getting my arms and legs connected together, and really caring for me with her touch. And she was the first trustworthy person that I had found. So if that was 2003 or so, I had been here in this world for over 2.5 years. And I had met, I would say, some of the darkest, most evil, dangerous, psychopathic people in the world, because I didn't know you have to protect yourself from those types of people. And I had not really met anybody who was a good, loving, kind, trustworthy person. She was the first trustworthy person that I had met and who I could trust touching my body. And she was very, very loving. And that was transformative in its own way. And she actually, gifted many sessions to me over the years And so that was transformative because, like, of course, I did not know about how to access medical professionals. And then later on, I did go into the medical system because I was having uncontrolled seizures. Like, I need to tell you guys all about like the seizures that I went through and what that was. But first, I'll say, like, the medical professions, like, throw them out the window. They were not good at all. They did nothing that was helpful to me. But then I had a wonderful experience in 2015. This was like I was in medical crisis again and having a lot of uncontrolled seizures and a lot of problems. And a friend introduced me to this wonderful person in California. It's Ukiah is the area. It's north of San Francisco, and she's still active and she's still healing people. Her name is Heliana, like the sun, like Helio, the sun, Heliana. And she is an amazing Reiki master, and I don't use that term lightly at all. She's really a master of what she does. And she did very, very deep, profound work at being able to help me as a soul to integrate into my body. Because up until that point, that was 2015, so I had been here for like 14 years, I was not fully in my body. Meaning, if you could comprehend like a hand that is not fully in a glove, or like your foot is not fully in your sock and in your shoe, it's just kind of halfway in there. That is what my life was like. So, like, I felt sensations, but I was always like wildly careening from like stimulation to stimulation. I was not in control of things at all and could not really see. And, like I was flying by the seat of my pants all the time, like innovating, getting by, not really figuring things out or doing things in the optimal way at all. And so what Heliana did was helped me to get integrated into my body. So one of the first things is like I had no idea what a belly button was. Not that I didn't have one, I had one. And even I had to have like a hernia of the belly button, supra umbilical hernia. It had to be surgically fixed. That was, like whatever, years before I even went out to California. But when I had that, because I told Heliana, I'm like, it was like such a small operation. It was like 3 stitches. Like, why did it hurt so much? And she was like, oh, because your navel is an important energy center on your body. And when you were in your mother's womb, that's where you got all of your nutrition from. And I was like, what? That's what? And I'm being very silly right now, but literally it was mind blowing to me because I did not gestate this body. So basically, I had to tell, like, you guys need to know, like, my body is neurologically damaged, but also, like, I had no idea how these bodies work. I didn't know I had to eat food when I first came here. I thought I was going to go 100% light eater, and I did not know about food. So I had to learn, like, I had to learn about eating food. Then I had to learn about different types of food and optimizing food. And by that point, like, that was like 2006 or so. I had learned about food and I didn't just eat what tasted good, but then I learned like some stuff is getting genetically modified and did you want to stay away from it? That was 2006. All right. It's the first time like someone sent me a documentary and I learned they're doing something bad to the corn. And then I learned like, oh, like I can't just eat anything. You have to start to learn to read the labels of what's in it. I come from a very angelic place where like we would never think of putting something bad or poisonous ingredient into food. And I had to learn like this stuff is not good for anyone to eat. Because you guys also need to know, like when I first came here, I did whatever the people around me did. So I had like tons of brain problems and wasn't fully in my body. And also lots of people around me smoked tobacco. So for a few years, I smoked tobacco. And also I drank the giant cups of coffee like they did at the convenience store. And I worked in all of these, like stressful, like low paying job positions. And after doing that for a very brief amount of time, like maybe a couple of weeks, I learned like you cannot do this. You cannot do this to your body. It is not optimal anything to be able to live in this way. I was like, how can people do this? Yeah. So of course, like I stopped drinking giant cups of coffee. And then, eventually like I had to learn how to quit tobacco because I had to learn what addiction was. Like I didn't even know about that because I learned it wasn't good for me, but then I didn't know why I still wanted to do it. And all of this was education for I could be in solidarity for all of you. Because otherwise it would have been very facile for me to be just like, oh, like you just ascend, like just do it in a very limp-wristed way, just ascend. And you're like, no, it's hard. So for me, if I say now, I do all sorts of work and I help people with sessions or whatever. If people are dealing with substance abuse or different addictions, I know exactly how hard it is to stop an addictive behavior because I smoked tobacco for like a brief amount of time, but then I knew it was wrong. It was very, very hard to stop doing it. All right. So if you want to know what I did for, like, I did psychological stuff, but eventually, like, I hid my tobacco and I had to forget where it was. Like, I literally had to lie to myself. I had to hide it from myself so that I couldn't remember where it was. And then that kind of helped me to get free of it. I had to fool myself and trick myself in order to not ingest it anymore. But so, and I know that I just opened another can of worms, but just to yes, I know. Because I wanted to get Heliana because I didn't know about food. And she had to tell me, like, oh, like when you were gestating as a baby, your food all went in through your navel. And I was like, what? Like, I had no idea that that's what your belly button did because I thought it was just like some small feature on your abdomen. Yeah.
Um,
So,
how do you
yeah.
hide
Tell
something
me.
from yourself? How do you do that? That's like trying to tickle yourself. How?
Exactly. Totally, totally. So I had to put my tobacco in an inaccessible area in my apartment, in my home. And then what helped a lot was that, or maybe not, I mean, I don't know how to phrase this or whatever. When you have seizures, when I had seizures, memory is a real issue because every time you have a seizure, I call it, it shakes up the salad dressing of your brain. Like, when you have salad dressing, you have oil and vinegar and they're at their different levels. It's like perfect. But when you are going to put on your salad, you shake it up and then they get all mixed up together. I was having seizures that were uncontrolled. And they're an artifact of the brain injury and the scarification that's in my brain. And whenever I have seizures, it causes some amount of like memory loss afterwards. Like it's very hard to integrate and remember things. So it actually made it very difficult for me to function during the time that I was having active seizures. It was very hard for me to learn how to play music. Like I always loved music since I first came here as Aurora, and I would be, learning a song or learning how the words are so I could sing a song. And if I had seizures, then I would like pretty much forget what I had learned. And I was trying to learn and teach myself the piano at that time in my life, but I couldn't internalize and retain the notes that I was trying to learn how to play because my brain was getting so disarranged. So if you have memory problems, then it is very easy to hide something on yourself and not remember where you hid it. But we have to laugh because it was not a good reason of having memory problems. But also, I learned about addiction because I was like very aware that my neurochemicals were not in a good balance. And I knew that tobacco was not helpful towards that. And I was like, but still, I want to have the tobacco. Like, I know it's not good for my brain. I know I shouldn't be doing this. Why do I want to do this? And I learned how powerful some of these substances are. So, yeah, I hid it from myself. I forgot where it was. And that kind of helped me to get past the desire for it. And then, eventually found it to be disgusting, revolting, and incomprehensible and expensive and not anything that I wanted to, go back to or re-ingest. It was not, it's still not tempting to me at all, but I had to learn how to whatever get past the biochemical cravings of it.
Tell me more about this flow of information that you have and all of the wisdom and knowledge that you have come here with, because you're also talking about learning how to be a human at the same time. Did you foresee all of these challenges when you decided, I'm going to walk in this body and XYZ is going to happen? I'm going to teach about FRL. Can you tell me how you balanced all of that?
I totally did not know what I was getting into when I chose and self-assigned this mission to myself. First of all, I literally thought that I would be a light eater because I am from ancient concurrent Atlantis, and that's what we did in that time place. So I was like, I'm going to go down there and eat light. That's what I thought, or in there, or have that experience. And I had no idea about the corruption of the world right now, like how corrupt people's thinking is, their lack of integrity, the evil that is in government and other power control structures. Like I told you, it was revelatory when someone sent me the information about genetically modifying the corn in 2006, because I come from such an innocent place that I would never even think that you have to protect yourself from adulterated foods or something that's not actually digestible being sold as food. There was so much that I didn't know. And I also, we can all laugh, please laugh. I thought that my gig would be over in 2003. Literally, I came in 2001. I thought I would be done in 2 years. This 23 years later, I am still here. Please laugh. Yes, Aurora's Comedy Hour, truly. Because I thought that my whole focus of my journey being here was simply to externalize the Flying Rainbow Lasagna form, that I had come here with this as an innate embodiment and a knowledge inside of myself, but not yet as something that was a drawing or a painting or a sculpture that others could see. And I literally thought it was just my cosmic assignment to make a sculpture and then I would be done. Wait, I even have it. Let me grab it. It's right here. I have it at within arm's reach at all times. This is the original lasagna that I first made. It's made out of like Sculpey kids clay, and I literally baked it in the oven, and you can see the edges here where it like went along the rack of the oven. It was baked in there like this, the way you bake a pot roast. Okay, bake the lasagna in the oven. And I remember completing it in 2003, and I took it like the toaster went ding, ding, and then I took it out of the oven like dun dun boom 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 boom, like from 2001 A Space Odyssey, right? But I'm like, amazing, I did the thing. And I'm like, I'm ready, like I did the thing. It was not enough. Like I literally, I thought, and I was not articulate at that time in my journey. Like I made this sculpture. I had no idea how to relate to people. I had no idea how to share a concept or an idea or even an artwork. I didn't know anything. Like I became a custom framer because I learned like if you want to share artwork with the world, you got to put it in a frame. Otherwise, people will just think it's just like a piece of tissue paper and they will blow their nose on it. Like that you have to contextualize something to share it so that people can receive it and know that it is special. I used to just literally stand on a street corner and just like show people this like this. And I thought that was doing my assignment. I know. And this is why I'm still here, because that was not enough. And I had to learn that that is not enough, because people would be like, who are you? What is that thing? They're like, is it a scented candle? I'm like, no. I would say it's Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And they would be like, that's it. You're weird. Get away. Because even that is not descriptive enough to them. I would be like, it's the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Like, duh. But no, not enough at all. So you could say the goalposts kept on being extended. My mission kept on being extended, but also I had to learn like, how do humans receive information? And it's not enough to just like drop a cupcake in front of them and be like, here, have some food. Because they're going to be like, well, what's in it? Who made this? Who are you? Are you a baker? So when I started to share this concept with people, they would be very like, what is this? It is not a scented candle. Who are you? How do you know about this? Like, tell me more. And so I learned that people couldn't even learn and receive from me without the correct backstory or introduction into who I am. And of course, that was always challenging because I would describe who I was and I would say like I'm otherworldly or I come from another place, and they thought that I was like ET the extraterrestrial. And there were just a lot of barriers to even simple communication on an expository level about what this is. So I had such a steep learning curve in terms of social dynamics and how to share on that level. And then also I had to learn more about like self-expression, artistry, because of course I didn't come here knowing anything about different types of clay or different types of paint. Like I had to self-educate about all of those things. And then I also had to learn about like different descriptive terms because I didn't know anything about the language of how you talk about what's a polygon or what is symmetry. I did not know these words and have the ability to describe what was inside of me by using these words. So it took a very long time, and how did I do it? With like everything, I just dived in. So this is what Aurora's personality characteristics. I am totally undaunted, and I'm not afraid of being embarrassed and doing the wrong thing. I will just like dive in and figure it out. So this is me being a human. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just gonna dive in and figure it out, right? And I did so many things wrong. So we have lots and lots of funny stories about the things that I did wrong, right? So what I eventually did in order to be more articulate was there was this is I lived in Woodstock, a community access late night TV show. And all of this is pre-YouTube. It was really like very early. This is like 2005 or 2006 or so. And so because now if people want to express themselves, and even if you feel unsure about yourself, like you can have a little cell phone and you take videos and you put it up on YouTube or whatever, or Twitter, and then people find your stuff. But back then, this was like the only way to do something like that. And it was totally free because I was a starving artist with, like not a lot of resources. And it was in the middle of the night. So like you didn't have to pay any money. You could go to the community access little broadcasting theater. You had to have training. You had to like go through your training, and you had to be like a responsible person because there was a lot of expensive equipment there. So I felt like very honored, like I'm a part of the community, like they're trusting me with this. And also, you had to pick up the key at the police station to be able to do this. So I would go to the local police station in Woodstock, which is like a little house. It's not like a fancy police station. It was like in a little house. And they all knew my name. And they'd be like, hey, Aurora. And I'd be like, hi, I'm here to do my show. And they'd be like, here's the key. And be like, okay, thank you very much, policeman. And then I'd go back out. And I'm like, I never do anything illegal. I'm a total good citizen. I know. My only things that I did illegal were like things that I inhaled that were illegal to inhale in that area of the world. All right. And then I go and do my TV show in the middle of the night, and I would tell myself like no one is watching. And I would do these broadcasts, and I would talk about flying rainbow lasagna, but now I'm good at it. But back then, I did not know anything about how to say these things. And so I said, and huh, and what am I talking about? Like I stumbled over my words all the time. But when little kids do silly things and they say like, blah, blah, blue, blah, blue, 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 Batman, like you think that they're talking nonsense, but what they're doing is they're trying to create neural pathways in their brain that are about self-expression. So if you're a parent or if you're in childcare, babysitter, whatever, you have to encourage kids. You can't just be like, hey, like, shut up, you're driving me crazy, because they are doing valuable work in being able to create neural connections. I had to do this with my own levels of incoherent articulation in order to try to create those positive neural pathways. I was totally like an infant. I did not know how to say these things effectively. And I was also just figuring it out. And it took a long time. Sometimes people would find me, in the community. They'd be like, I saw you on TV in the middle of the night. And I'd be like cringing away. I'd be like, oh no. But they'd be like, but we thought it was cool. You should do it some more. I'd be like, oh, the humans liked me. They thought it was good. I will do more. And that was it. And that really, and I think that there might be some, maybe, in somebody's like old hard drive recordings of this. I called it Planet Aurora, even though I would always tell people like, technically, I'm not from a planet. But I would joke that you could come and visit me on my planet for half an hour every week when I did my little TV show. And I'd be like, yeah, like this is what things are like on my planet. And it's flying rainbow lasagna. And these are what these things are. So I found a little bit of encouragement and acceptance. And that actually was like watering the flowers in my garden. It really uplifted me a lot. It really made me feel like I was doing something that I should keep going with. And so I did. And I also, started to find more community in the people that were interested in what I have to share by going into the academic world. So this was also really important. So this was like I had, uncontrolled seizures, and I didn't drive very much. And I felt very not equal to other people in terms of my social presence and my comportment. And I didn't really know the manners or how to be in the world, like, a lot of things. I want to joke about like My Fair Lady or The Princess Diaries. Like I was like the before, and then the after. I was still the before of like hadn't yet had the, lessons about how to interact in the world. I was informed in like 2008 or so about this thing that's called the math art conferences from it's called Bridges. It's the name of the organization that they were interested in. They're still active in bringing together like people from the science, technology, and academic world, and people who are artists who are all making this type of imagery that has to do with geometry and symmetry and shapes and things like that. And so I found, again, this is like kind of pre-internet, but I found out about this opportunity. And then I felt this is me with my shoulders down. I'm like, I can't do that. Like, there are mathematicians there. I was like, I'm not a mathematician. Like, my shoulders are down. Like, I'm not good at that. I don't know what I'm talking about. And I had a very dear friend. So, like, I talked to you about like some of the healers that helped me in my life. I also had a friend who has passed on at this point, but she was very interdimensional, and she also loved and accepted and celebrated me. And she recognized that I had a lot of intelligence inside of me that I was like trying to connect with others effectively. And even when I felt insecure. And so she was like, I told her about this thing. I'm like, yeah, but like I'm not a mathematician. I totally can't go. She was like, no, you must go. And she bought the plane ticket for me to be able to go. And then I was like, because I was a starving artist, not starving, but I just worked at stupid jobs and didn't have a lot of money. And I told her, like, I'll pay you back one day. She's like, no, I want you to pay me with artwork. So she was like, that type of a friend, right? But this was critical because when I went to the actual conference and I shared the concept of the flying rainbow lasagna, they got it. And it wasn't like standing on a street corner and offering it to random people. I was talking with academics who even comprehended what this is. And they were like, oh, so it's an algorithm. And I was like, I don't know what that word is, literally. But I didn't say it always that way. I would be like, I would nod thoughtfully, and then I would write down the word. I had a notepad with me all the time. I'd be like, look up this word, and then look up this word. So that was a lot of self-education. So I found out that there are people in the world who are actually like teachers and scientists who are really interested in what I have to share, that I had to connect with that community, and then I had to really do a lot of self-education about not only the type of vocabulary words that they use, but also the type of equipment that they had, because I had not really been exposed to computers and technology. But when I went there, they all had super cool computers and they did lots of cool stuff with animations. And I was like, if these computer nerds can do this with these animation programs, like imagine what type of cool things I could do with it. So I was like, okay, that's my self-assignment. I have to get a computer. So that was like around 2008 or so. And that was very, I mean, no, this isn't necessarily about my health journey, but it relates to like my neurological development. Because also, so like I still had a lot of eyesight deficit and coordination problems and everything like that. But I earned money, saved my money, and got a computer. And then I had to learn how to do computer stuff. And the things that might come easily to you were totally alien to me. I had no idea about like transferring a file or how to do this or that. So like anything, I'm like, I know nothing about this. Like, I'm going to figure out a way to do it. So I would like read articles and ask people about it. And I figured out how to do a lot of things. So I had like such a steep learning curve to be able to even be on an equal footing to what most other people did in a very ordinary way. Because like when I first came here, like I didn't know how to work a laundry machine. And then at a certain point, I was trying to work a computer. Like I had no um like basis for comprehending technology. Like where I come from in Atlantis, we don't use technology. And where I come from in an otherworldly state outside of space and time, like we do not use technology. I had to learn about all sorts of things that were technological. And but what I did was I learned how to learn. Like I learned, like, oh, if you want to know about something, go to the library. All right. And because now people don't really use their libraries, but this is back then in 2001 to 2010 or so. And I would ask the librarian, like, I would be like, hi, like, I'm a person. Do you have, information about blah, blah, blah? Or can you show me about blah, blah, blah? And they'd be like, yes, here is a book, or yes, here is this. Or then they had logins on different computers and be like, and you can also use the computer in order to do a search and log in and learn about this. And I was like, whoa, okay. So like this is me like figuring out how to learn stuff. So again, I did a lot of self-education, but I have a lot of huge gaps, huge educational gaps of things that I never self-educated about because I just learned like practical things that I needed to know about. So like I don't know about world history and the kings and queens of Europe, and I don't know about sports. Like if we did Trivial Pursuit, like I would only be good at very, very few categories. Okay. But I didn't know anything. And we should talk about my musical journey sometime. This conversation is going in a different direction because I'm like, no, I'm supposed to talk about healing and stuff, but music was a part of my healing, but I had no musical like cultural foundation. Like you guys all like songs, like all the same songs that have been on the radio. Like maybe you're like, yeah, like I remember that song from 10 or 15 years ago. I didn't know anything. And I didn't know who sang any of the songs. I'd just be like, oh, like I hear that song. Like, I like that music. And then it took a lot. At a certain point, someone gifted me like a secondhand computer and I got access to YouTube. And this was YouTube like early YouTube before it was monetized for AdSense and controlled by Google. So it was really just like a random catch-all of people sharing their videos that they recorded in their bedrooms, like not in their sex activities, but just like recorded in their, whatever, like in their privacy of their home and put up weird stuff and talking about weird ideas. And then also songs that you might like. And because like, again, I didn't have a lot of money to be able to like go to a record store, buy a song that I like. I didn't even know who or what was good. So when I got that computer, I was able to go on YouTube and like listen to stuff. And then I would ask people to like tell me like what's good and what I should listen to. And also I remember the first time I attended karaoke, and you guys were like, oh, karaoke, that's silly. I'm like, no, karaoke is sacred karaoke that like initiated me into the world of music. Because I remember going there and because my friends brought me there. Because I was very lucky actually to have a good group of people who were also like humble people without a lot of money, working at, very like entry level, simple positions, but with great hearts, who had no problem with the fact that I was very socially inept and unusual and bizarre at times. And they were like, oh, yeah. And I was always out of the closet. Like they always knew that I was a walk-in and that I was not from around here. And they were even protective of me too. Sometimes they'd be like, oh, like Aurora's not going to get this. Like, don't let this, don't let her get into this, or don't show her this. And so they brought me to karaoke, and it was like another moment, like dun dun karaoke. This is for me, like because like you're not allowed to sing. Okay, so now I'm just talking about my life and my journey, but look, I learned pretty early on you are not allowed to sing in public, so I had to make sure, like, because like I was having uncontrolled seizures and also came from a very different world. And I learned like you cannot stand out too much because you can get incarcerated for standing out too much. Because when I first came here, and I'm very free, I'm very just, emotionally and expressively free. And I would walk down the street and I would be like, grooving, walking, dancing down the street. And people would be like, staring at me while I'm walking down the street. And then I learned like, oh, like you can't do that. This is not okay. So then I learned like, okay, you have to groove in a smaller way while you're walking along. So people won't think that you're that weird, right? And I learned like you can sing in the supermarket where because they have music on in the supermarket. And so I would sing in the supermarket and I'd be like, it's okay, but not if it's too loud. That you had the volume issue was I had learned. And but then I also learned sometimes they'll sing along with you. Like one of the greatest moments of my life was when, after I had learned about some music and learned the lyrics, and I was in a grocery store and Bohemian Rhapsody from Queen came on, and I was like, oh, I know this song and I know the lyrics and I'm singing it, and the guys in the deli are singing it too, and the people that work at the front of the store are singing it too. So that was, of course, many years later. But what happened the first time they brought me to karaoke, and I was like, this is where you're allowed to sing. This is the place in this culture, in this time and place. This is the place where you're allowed to sing. And I was like, oh, Like I'm home. This is what I can do. But I didn't know any of the words. I didn't know any of the songs. I just loved it. And of course, I did a very bad job because I didn't know any of the songs and I didn't know any of the words, but I was very enthusiastic. So what I had to do is went home and I had to self-educate. And I'd be like, I like that song. I would write it down. I would always carry around a little notepad. I'd be like, okay, what's the name of that song? Write it down, write it down. And then I would look it up. And what I did was I self-educated in exactly the same way that I learned about like computer science. I learned about rock and roll. I literally taught myself like, oh, like this is an important song in the history of rock and roll. I'm going to have to learn this song. And then I studied the lyrics, like the way that you study something that is an important subject. Like I would read the lyrics, I would learn about them, I would look up the words to comprehend the meaning, I would learn about the musicians that made the music, and then I would emulate them and try to sing and perform the way that they performed. So like, I mean, I guess that does kind of relate to my neurological healing journey because I had to do a lot of rewiring in my brain in order to be able to do that. And although like even my conversational English wasn't very good, but I learned like I could get good at remembering the lyrics. You know, like it uses a different neural pathways in your brain. And when I got my first entry level job, so I should rewind. I'm telling this in like the most fragmented way possible. But some of the damage in my brain was also in my math. And you guys are like, no, Aurora, like you're a math genius. You're really good at math. And I'm like, yes, I am. And that's me, the cosmic level of Aurora. I'm excellent at math. My human neurology and my human ability level when I first came here was minimal because I was numerically illiterate. The part of this brain that knew about and could recognize numbers was totally damaged. And so that means that for the first couple of years that I was here, like I couldn't recognize the difference between a number 3 and a number 8 because they both kind of look the same. They both kind of look like a snowman. You know what I mean? But they're a little bit different. And I couldn't tell the difference between the two of them. And when I needed to do something like purchase food, so like I didn't know about food, then I learned I had to eat food because I had empty ow in here. And then I learned you could go to food areas and receive food, but you had to have magical pieces of paper. But also, like at that point, this was like 2002, I didn't even really know how to ask for what I wanted. Like that's how much it was like being a foreigner with a foreign language, but I could point to what I wanted. So there was like a bagel pizza, like little shop right near where I lived. And I would just go there every day and I would just point to what I wanted. And at that point, my skill level was so minimal. I didn't even know how to use a knife. Like I not only didn't know how to prepare food, I did not know how to use a knife. Because if you just buy a bagel, then you have to learn, you have to first cut it with a big knife and then you have to open it up. Then you have to get a smaller knife and get cream cheese and put it on top with the smaller knife. I could not comprehend this. This was high technology to me. I know, and you can laugh about this, and I'm glad that you do. But I did know how to go to the bagel shop and point and request what I wanted. Just like if imagine if you went to France or Thailand or something like that, and you're like, I do not know how to say what I want, but I will just point to that. And I smiled a lot too. And I did, of course, know how to say thank you, which is again like the only thing you need in most languages to get by. And then I just knew I had to give magical pieces of paper, but I didn't know anything about the denominations on the paper. And I didn't know anything about what I was receiving back. And I knew nothing about the coins either. I was numerically illiterate. Like that, you get so to just get you guys up to speed. When I first came here, totally innocent, totally angelic. I know nothing about violence or pathology or lies or that I have to protect myself from bad people. I also did not have good eyesight, so everything around me was very blurry. Like I couldn't really see everything. I didn't really have good language skills. And also, I did not know anything about numbers or addition or subtraction or have the ability to navigate with that. So, like, I didn't know people's phone numbers. I didn't know street signs to navigate that. I couldn't navigate the world. I lived in a very limited bubble of what was possible and where I could go and what I could do, and just trying to like get a bagel from the bagel shop was, a major triumph because I was able to receive food and then like stay alive. But I didn't know about like that you have to eat more than bagels. Like I didn't even know about that because there was also pizza. There was bagels and there was pizza. And this bread, I like you have to eat more variety of your diet than that. I did not know about that at all. I did not know about proteins and carbohydrates and fats. Like I was just like when you are like a 2 or 3 year old and you're like, yep, like I eat this in here and that's it. And then I run around and I do stuff. It's like that's why little kids like they just eat pasta or whatever is their favorite food, like whatever, chicken fingers or something like that. Like they have no idea that your body needs to eat vegetables occasionally. Like that is who and what I was. I didn't know anything about that. Um, so to contextualize that, it was a very, very big deal for me to go from being totally numerically illiterate to being able to eventually comprehend what a computer is and even work one. And the interim steps were, I talked my way into a job because I always knew like you need those magical pieces of paper, right? Like you need the magical pieces of paper to be able to access the food room, to be able to do all these different things. And even when I got my first job, I still did not know anything about math, addition, subtraction, or how to recognize numbers. So this is me like flying by the seat of my pants a lot. But I talked my way into that first job, which was working in a craft store, like where they sell arts and craft supplies. And one of the things I had to do was like take things out of the boxes and put them up on the shelves for them to be, sold to customers. So you take something out of the box and it has a serial number on it. And then you have to match up the serial number with the thing on the wall to be able to put it on there. To you, this might seem very rudimentary and even boring, but to me, it was like as difficult as rocket science. I was like, every day, I was like this, roll up my sleeves, like, okay, I am going to figure out how to do this. And I, of course, knew how to open up a box. At that point, I had learned how to use a knife, open up the box, right? And then it's got all these symbols on it that are numbers. And I was like, I do not know, but I need the job. I need these magical pieces of paper. So how music helped me was I would sing the numbers to myself. So maybe the numbers for the Sharpie marker would be like 626 758, and I'd sing it to myself like 626 758, and then I'd try to find those numbers on the shelf so that I would put it in the right place. And I didn't know it, but what I was doing was like synesthesia, like the ability to learn through music what I couldn't learn through direct cognitive, intellectual comprehension. And so, like, no one taught me any of this. I figured out how to do these things because I needed to survive, but I started to rewire my brain using music. But that was really before I had access to musical instrumentation or being able to listen to any song that I wanted. So you guys need to know, like right now you live in an amazing time because pretty much you have access to any song that you want to listen to at any time. Like if you're like, oh, I want to listen to Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, you can call it up on all these different Spotify services or on YouTube or whatever. But there were a lot in my life, a lot of times when you couldn't just listen to any song that you wanted. So you could imagine like there were times that were technology when every song was not available, or when you did not have access to these various different things that were either expensive or difficult to whatever. So it's a huge privilege to be able to be like, oh, I want to listen to this song. I will listen to it now. So at that time in my life, I listened to whatever was the song that was on the radio or whatever was the song that somebody else was playing. That's what I'm trying to say. I know this conversation is going far afield. Thank you for giving me the latitude to talk about these things because I'm telling you, sharing new Aurora stories with you. Okay, so I didn't have control over the music I was listening to, but my coworkers would sometimes put music on while we were working together. And there was this one guy, and he's still alive, and I'm still connected to him on Facebook, but he gave me such a musical education. He didn't even know it. But so, because the manager would go home at 5 p.m., I would still be there for like many hours, working until like 9 p.m. or so. And he would take out his boom box and he would put on like Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. That was the first time I listened to that music in that frame shop. And because he'd even be this, he'd be like, hey Aurora, like listen to this, and he'd put it on and he'd be like, what? What? Like this? Wow. But then he'd put on some other stuff that was really not good. He'd be like, yeah, we're listening to this. I'd be like, ow, my ears. Like, no, that is bad. Because he had quite diverse musical tastes. But he gave me like a little musical education there. So music was very important to me. It helped me to make these cross hemisphere connections and rewire. I didn't have the word neuroplasticity, but that was a lot of what I was doing. And I always had a deep love of music and a desire to express myself through music. And so that was like many years later, they took me to my first karaoke. And then I started to self educate and I taught myself again about rock and roll and the history of rock and roll. So, like, I listened to, like, here's a song by the Beatles. Like, oh, like they were an important band that reached a lot of people. I have to, listen to their music and see what that is. And people that I was connected to, my friends, they gave me some education too, because Queen was a big one. Because when I first heard Queen, somebody sang it at karaoke and he did a beautiful job and everybody cheered for him. And then he jumped off the stage, but not like really jumped off the stage, but they carried him off the stage and they bought him a beer and because he did a good job. And I was like, that song was amazing. And I want that level of love and celebration and acceptance. Like I want people to cheer for me. I did not drink alcohol though. I didn't want beer. But so they were like, I was like, who sang that song? And my friends are like, you don't know Queen? And I'm like, no, like this is me with my face, like, no, like I don't know Queen. They're like, Aurora, this is very serious. You need to come home with us immediately. You need to watch this thing. It's called a rockumentary. And they showed me the VH1 rockumentary about Queen, the band. And I sat there watching, and this is me like being exposed to Freddie Mercury for the first time. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I was like, I want to sing like that. I want to do that. And so, of course, I went immediately to begin studying their repertoire and learning their music and learning. And the point is, I took it very seriously. All of these things I took very, very seriously in order to be able to learn about and embody the things that other people that are already acculturated might do very easily. But that learning about music and being able to remember lyrics and also express myself verbally through singing, that was a very big part of my healing journey. Because up until that point, like I told you, I had been feeling very insecure and not like I knew how to say things and how to be received well. But through doing the middle of the night TV broadcast and singing karaoke, that was how I first started to find my voice and first started to be able to find like how I could use the power of my voice to express myself. And then it was still many, many years before I would actually become a musician, like generating my own songs. And I'll just, because you guys are curious, I can hear your telepathic curiosity, even though it's not specifically about my healing journey. But here's what happened. Okay. So I have to tell you about framing, custom framing though. So I worked at that job where I was just teaching myself numbers through music, like kind of back in 2004 or so. And I got good at it and I got bored. And I was like, I'm bored because this is the thing. I do learn very, very fast. So I was on an accelerated journey. And then I was like, well, I'm going to see if I can get this slightly better job in the frame shop. And I went and I auditioned or put in my application and they were like, no, they were like totally rejected me. They were like, no way. And I'm like, huh. I know. So, okay. So they hired this other guy and his name was Bill. And Bill worked there for a week and he did a terrible job. Like, I had a brain injury. I don't know what his excuse was. Like, he did the worst job. He did all of the measurements wrong and he was very bad with customers and he actively made things up. Like, if he forgot about something, he would be like, oh, yeah, like this is a blue metal frame. And that was not what the customer ordered at all. And then at the end of a week, they totally fired him. All right. So then I went back to the supervisor. And this is me in my early like attitude of being a walk-in. I was like, yo, man, give me a chance. I can't be any worse than Bill. All right. Just give me a chance. And the supervisor, this was New Jersey also, and very New Jersey in all of this attitude. He was like, well, do you even know what an inch is? And I was like, I couldn't say no, but I was like, why don't you give me the tutorial? And then he did, actually. He did. He showed me on a measuring tool, like on a tape measure. He's like, "This is an inch," with attitude. And then he's like, "And this is half an inch. And this is quarter of an inch. And this is an eighth of an inch." And my mind was blown. I was like, "Oh my God." And then he was like, "Yeah, and then this is 12 inches, which is a foot, and then this is 2 feet." And I got it because I had something tangible that I could use to comprehend numbers. And I was like, oh, the numbers get bigger, the line gets longer, the tape measure gets longer, the numbers get smaller, the tape measure gets smaller. And it was like that was the beginning of how I was healing from brain injury and how I was beginning to comprehend what numbers were. And so I did not make as many mistakes as Bill at that job, but I had to learn from the very, very beginning, like how to measure a square in inches and how to do these very basic things. And again, I didn't say that I didn't know all of these things. Like I didn't say I didn't know how to work a laundry machine, but I just kind of watched and learned. So like this, I didn't know how to put staples in a staple gun. But I didn't go up to my boss and be like, "Hi, like, well, please fire me. I don't know how to put staples in a staple gun." I knew that that would not be the right thing to do. All right. So I just kind of watched my coworker out of the corner of my eye, and she didn't say it with words, but she was like, "Mm, mm, mm." And I was like, "Oh, that's how you do that thing." And then I would do it too. All right. So I just emulated the people around me, but they also, and I thought that I was fitting in so well. That was in my all denim period where I was just wearing all denim to fit in all the time. And I thought like, oh, nobody knows that I'm an otherworldly visitor. I'm working at my job. I'm doing a great job. They all thought that I was the funniest thing because I would like they I would because so they were like, "You don't know anything about pop culture, blah blah." And I'm like, "I know everything about pop culture. I know that to shake your booty means to wiggle your butt." And they thought that was the funniest thing. They're like, "You don't know anything." So I thought I was fooling everyone. They totally weren't fooled, but they did take me under their wing a little bit too and kind of educate me about things. So I got like positive exposure to some things that I needed to learn there. But then that was also where I learned about money because even though I had been earning money and receiving a paycheck, I didn't have like a real overarching understanding or connection to money and what it was. But when I worked at that department, I had to count out the cash drawer at the end of the day. And so they had to show me like the ones, fives, tens, twenties, and then all of the coins. And then that, along with understanding the numbers and the number line on the ruler, I started to be able to envision how math works and addition and subtraction. And it was actually the beginning of how I started to make my more complex art pieces. I have some art pieces that were before that time that are very neurologically disarranged. Like the lines are very curly and they're very interesting and expressive. And they look a little bit like Van Gogh. And I identify a lot with Van Gogh because he also had uncontrolled epilepsy, but he was very like discarded. People thought he was insane or invalid as a person because he was having uncontrolled seizures, but he was very sane and very artistic in what he was doing. So when I learned about him as an artist, I was like, yeah, like I see a lot of parallels. That was to my journey and my initial paintings. I didn't use rulers and circle templates to make everything perfect. I just drew things freehand and it had that same kind of like seething, gushing, like a lot of motion in it because all of that was like that's what your brain looks like when you have a lot of seizure activity and it is uncontrolled. But when I started to learn about math and about the money and basic, addition and subtraction, my brain got more organized. And that's when I started to work with circles and just drawing circle templates and making everything super perfect and fitting it all together. And it was like an external organization process for my brain. And I learned how I could use like a protractor or different circle templates and start to draw these simple things that grew into greater levels of complexity. So really when I do math in my brain, I'm not doing it with the Aramaic numerals like a numeral one, a numeral two, numeral three. What I'm really doing is envisioning packets of circles coming together. And that was what I developed as like my own little way of doing things that then grew into very large, complex artworks. So I still do that. So I'm taking it on the journey, guys. Don't worry. You're not going to get lost here. So that was me at a very entry level position, just figuring out my own way of comprehending math and a facility in doing it. Flash forward several years where because I had worked at that position and done well, and then leveled up and went to another position because I learned fast, always learned fast, and then ended up getting to Woodstock where got a job, but then ended up being like in charge of the framing department. I was overseeing myself. I was not a boss. Like I just didn't have that. I was the department. I was the department. All right. So that's it. But by the time I got to that point in my life, I had been using the calculator to be able to calculate all these things. When you do a framing job, someone to give them the estimate. And at a certain point, I learned that I was doing it faster in my own mind than I didn't have to use the external calculator. But that was like maybe about a 3.5 year journey to get to that point. So total numerical illiteracy to really facility of doing math in my head took about 3.5 years. And yeah, I know. And that was pretty good. And then I also learned from the things that I was interacting with, social dynamics are very hard for me. And I'm not like, I don't identify as being autistic or on the autism spectrum. I would define myself as non-neurotypical or neurodivergent, like definitely. Like I have brain damage. My brain is not a normal brain at all. But the challenges of like relating to other people were very insurmountable. I think that was the hardest part of my day was when I had to work with customers and work with the public. But the easiest, coolest, most fun part of my day was when I just had to work with numbers. And I'd be like, oh yeah, I measure this thing and then I add these things up and I do this over here. That ended up being like a very safe, fun, comfortable thing for me to do with my brain. And I do counting in my head all the time. And I would do counting and doing like looking at polygons and shapes all the time. Like that's my happy place. That's where I'm most comfortable. So I learned that in my position, it was like a big energy drain to be like having a long conversation with people and talking all of these things and all the dynamics of people at work and who's getting hired and who's getting fired. All of that was a huge super drain. But I'd be like, everybody shut up. Now all I have to do is do math. And I'd be like, oh, numbers. I love you. This is the easiest, most fun, coolest part of my day when I just have to do the numbers. Yeah. And so I learned a lot about myself also. Although you can tell, like I'm very expressive and I'm very social, but people can be just incomprehensible. What was draining is not just like being in the heart space and talking with people or connecting, but like I did not understand people and people do not add up like an equation and they don't make sense to me. They're not rational, but numbers are very rational. And I really started to love the regularity of that. So that's the contextual journey up into the point where then I finally had enough gumption to go to one of these math art conferences. And then from there, I had to even level up further. Like I had to learn about computers, computer science, how to do all of these things. And then even when I started to do that, I just always had to learn new things to be able to express the I'm sorry that I'm not coming up with the word, but I'll get it, complexities of what I was seeing internally, because my internal mathematical world was very complex and I didn't have all of the tools and ability to externalize it. So every time I would meet with these other mathematicians and these science and academic type of people, I stole tools from them. I didn't steal them, but you know what I mean? I appropriated all of their tools, their approaches, their ways of doing things, and I internalized it. And that was all like way back in Woodstock. I was like just a very obscure person, mostly just painting in my studio on my own and without really making any videos or anything that other people would know me from. And that was, you can still find some of those very early all denim videos on my YouTube channel. I know they're fun to go back and look and see me back then. And you can see also my face has changed because I still had a lot of like facial asymmetry then. But yeah, no, and I know, thank you for just letting me talk on and on. I feel like we're just like hanging out as friends. And I know we were supposed to do like a focused video about important healing stuff. And I have just like used all of our time and talked about a lot of wild, crazy adventures in my life.
Um, Thank you for the apology, but please don't. Actually, your answers are always perfect. Let's not downplay the power of music. Um, it's a language that can be felt in every part of the world, and it's something you can just feel when you close your eyes, right? Um, Let me reply to everything you just said. I have a few points. First of all, you have had amazing friends, really divine timing, divine friends who have led you to music and have protected you. You have really fought for your learning and growth. And it's crazy to think in a time where information is so accessible now, we really take it for granted. And you have really fought in every moment. You have been a warrior from the start and just learning numbers at first to measurements to math and even throwing away the calculator when you realize that your brain worked faster. You know, when we use a phone, we forget things like we don't know how to remember a phone number anymore. And people are okay with that. But you're like, no, I don't need this calculator. So it just shows that you're constantly a warrior on and on in every era. Um, let's see, I have to comment on the denim thing.
Tell me.
Was that pre Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears
Yes.
era? I'm aging myself now because that's where I first saw the all denim thing. Did they take that from your time? I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure about where their fashion inspiration comes from, but I will tell you, I was not connected to pop culture at that time in my life. Like, I was not aware of like who are celebrities, who are musicians. I knew nothing about anyone and nothing. But so this is like in the time of my life when I still didn't even know how to prepare a bagel for myself or basic food, but I would look around town and because I'm like, initially I was trying to fit in. Initially, I wasn't like, hi, like I'm an otherworldly person from another place, and I have all this, extra information to share with you. I was trying to fit in as much as I could. And I was definitely never trying to like call in spaceships or anything overt. I was like, no, like I am fitting in around here. And so I looked in my town, everybody wore denim. Like I just did a little survey. I'm like, okay, like the most common fabric for people to wear in this time and place is denim. And I'm like, it is my initial goal to assimilate into this cultural world. So I'm also going to wear denim. And so I wore all denim, like denim pants and a denim shirt that buttons down and a denim jacket on top of that. And then I even had another like denim jacket that went on top of that to be like even a little bit warmer. And at one point, I even had denim shoes because I thought that this is like the fabric of the common people and I was going to totally fit in by just being all denim. And it made me feel very bulletproof. Like like you couldn't really see my feminine curves and I felt very protected. And I was just like, yep, I'm totally fitting in. And then years later, so I know I'm like, I don't want to talk on top of you, but just how did I find out that this was not optimum way? Because I dressed that way for years, like up until whatever. I mean, a long time, maybe even up until like 2010 or so. I watched that show called What Not to Wear. I learned a lot from TV. Like I learned a lot about how to navigate this world just from TV. But I watched that show religiously, the same way that I studied rock and roll music. I watched that show. Those people who did that show, they need to know this. Like, I owe a lot to them because they have rules. And some of the rules of what not to wear is you are not allowed to wear more than one denim piece of clothing at a time. Like you may wear a denim shirt, but then you cannot wear denim pants at the same time. You can wear denim pants, but you must wear another fabric as your shirt. And I was like, oh, I've been doing it wrong the whole entire time. Everybody knows I'm an extra worldly other person. I am not fitting in at all. I was deflated. I was very diminished. And then they also, they taught like, well, you should not wear too many accessories and you should not wear too many patterns. And so I really like tried to follow these rules in order to be more socially appropriate. But then, of course, like by 2017, that was when I started my own clothing line. So, of course, in order to do that, like I had such a steep learning curve because I had to learn about like how to take pictures with the camera, how to do Photoshop, how to do fabric design, how to do a website, how to do an Etsy shop. Like these things were, I came here not knowing how to cut a bagel. Like I did not know how to do these things. It was a lot for me to learn how to do those. But once I started to design the clothing that I liked, that felt like very flying rainbow lasagna and like what I like, it was against all of the rules of what not to wear because it was all about like many, many colors and patterns that didn't match and things that would be considered clashing or that don't work together. And I had to throw the rules out the window. But the rules did serve me very well during a certain level of my cultural integration. But then at a certain point, I decided to just go full on lasagna and I just started making all of my own clothes and I broke all the rules. Because, like, even if you look at me today, what I'm wearing is a dress and then my pants are the same exact pattern as my dress. So it would be considered too much pattern. But I'm like, I'm doing too much pattern. And I do this all the time. And people sometimes would give me side eye. They'd be like, you can't wear that. I'd be like, I'm wearing it. Because initially, like I thought something bad would happen if I did bad things. But then I learned like how much you can break the rules here and like not have a problem. So I'm always pushing that envelope. So I'm like, yep, we're gonna sing in the grocery store. We're gonna wear too much pattern at once, but they can't arrest you for those things. So I'm safe.
That's absolutely amazing, Aurora. I'm glad now that you're doing things in your own volition for yourself instead of trying to fit in.
And
Um,
let that be a lesson. Everybody, break the rules.
so I'm feeling very touched by all of your stories because the big picture is I see people that have been very patient and have extended their love and friendship to you, even though you were different in many ways and in many stages of your walk-in beginnings. They were just always so open, and it makes me think that we need to be that way with everyone, right? Especially right now, we don't know what people are going through. The attacks are everywhere, more frequent, and we don't know where they're coming from, and they're more obscure. So, yeah, that's the biggest message that I received today, to just, yeah, share the things you love with each other, be kind to each other. And you don't know if someone's gonna not know numbers one day and be wearing denim on denim, and you probably were bulletproof with all the layers you wore, to just sharing so many amazing teachings that are going to help so many people and uplift so many people like you are today.
You
Aurora, do
for
you
that.
have any more stories you want to share, or um, maybe give the top tips of your healing journey, and perhaps what you still do today to help people's health and mental health?
I totally do, because refocusing back to what really brought us to this conversation today. Um, there were a lot of things that I had to learn about optimizing being in a body that other people didn't know or could not teach me. Like I had to self-educate on what it is to have a body and to learn about these things. So I didn't know how much food was having a huge impact on my biology, my metabolism, and my neurological expression. I initially just ate what was convenient and available, and later I ate for flavors and textures. But it wasn't until a long time after that that I started to learn about how food is affecting my brain health. Like I didn't even know about my brain. I had to learn a lot about like like, what is my brain and why is it doing these things? Mostly because it was malfunctioning so much. So, and I had sought medical care, by that point in 2005 or 2006, I had certainly been to eye doctors and been to doctors and tried to be able to find out what's going on with me, but I still wasn't formally diagnosed as having epilepsy. So, first of all, I had to learn about how much food is having an impact on my brain and the activity of my brain. And what really helped me was talking to other patients. So this was the early time, really pre social media. There was MySpace and there was message boards. And so I told you my friends gave me that little secondhand computer that I used for studying karaoke very seriously, but I also used it in positive ways to empower myself as a patient because I didn't know when you go to the doctor, like you can't just present yourself for healing. You have to actually know how to advocate for yourself. You have to be able to say, doctor, like, here are my symptoms. Here is what I'm feeling. Here's what is happening. Here's what I think is going on. Here's the treatment I would like. Like, I didn't know anything about that. I had gone into the medical system and I was just not articulate. And also, doctors will judge you a lot based upon your level of articulation, your perceived level of education and intelligence, and also your outfit. The doctors were judging me from my all denim outfit and from my relatively poor grammar and other things that weren't that educated in my self-expression. And I did not get good medical care. But when I went onto these different message boards that were for people that were dealing with different seizure disorders, that was when I started to really get empowerment information. That was when I started to learn from other patients about like how they're taking care of their bodies and what they're doing with food, and also what are the better pharmaceuticals and what are the worst ones. Because I eventually, like, I was having uncontrolled seizures, and at a certain point, like, you can't survive with that going on. So it got to a point where it was just at a crescendo where I wasn't able to make it through life. Like I wasn't able to kind of like fake it, along through my day. And I had to like it was actually a big deal for me to recognize that I needed to take some kind of a medicine to be able to make my brain like not explode, or explode is hyperbole, but I didn't know that that was required. Um, so I had to kind of like make an accommodation to even the concept of taking a medication, and out of desperation. But other patients informed me about how important it is to know about your food. And so I had to do self-education and learn about nutrition, like fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. And then I had to learn what are simple and complex carbohydrates. And then I had to learn how all of these things affect your brain. And I mostly had to learn about how refined sugar was not my friend. And that's refined sugar, but also alcohol. So in my journey, I was never that tempted by or interested in alcohol, but it was something that was part of the social fabric of the world that I navigated through. So I drank with when I was with other, again, like just like with the coffee and the tobacco, like it was presented as a food item and normalized as something that people do. So I had to learn like there are a lot of things that other people can do with their brains that I can't do with my brain because it is not good for my brain. That's it. I just had to learn. So if anybody's dealing with any kind of long-term or chronic health situation or whatever, just do what is right for your body. Maybe other people can eat gluten, but maybe it's not for you. And I think, Lanley, you're probably identifying with that in that moment, like some people can digest it fine, or lactose or whatever it is. So yeah, I had to learn that I had to make different, better food choices. And that it was its own journey itself. And of course, doctors did not help me or teach me or give me any support on that level. And then also, when I would go to the doctor, like the other patients helped to give me languaging to even be able to talk about what type of seizures I was experiencing, what area of my brain was being diminished, what my experience or behavior was like, because I had not gotten good respect from how I was describing my symptoms to doctors previous to that. I didn't speak their language. They couldn't hear from me what I was saying and what I was experiencing, and pretty much, kind of like shuffled me out the door. But doctors also, like, they give you pills like candy. And I remember that one time they gave me just like a box of pills. They were like, here, try this. And I was like, Well, that was literally my expression. And I went home and I checked on the message board and I read different people's things. And they're like, oh, yeah, like this is a terrible medicine. It will make you gain 40 pounds. It will make your hair fall out and it will make all these different bad side effects. And I was like, no, like throw it in the trash. I didn't want to try that at all. So I also, from that message board, but to synopsize this, I learned that doctors don't always have your best interests at heart. They don't always listen. They don't always come up with the right stuff, and that you have to look out for yourself, and you'll get a lot of better care from comparing stories with other people who are already on the other side of the journey of figuring out what's going wrong in their body and fixing it. So food ended up being a huge thing for me once I started to become empowered and learn that I could make different and better food choices. Up until that point, I didn't have cooking skills. I just ate what was prepared. And, it's simple to do that. Like in the town where I lived, there was a little deli. And like I would now I could do more than just point and talk. I could actually say like, I would like some of this, please, or some of this, please. And I even knew about money. But like I would just eat like, like chicken parm. I'd eat whatever. And just, that was it. And then I had to learn like how I had to take much better, make much more selective food choices, and even do meal prep and food planning. Like not just be like, oh, like I think I'm hungry. I will stop in at the deli and buy a thing and then eat it on the way home. Like I had to be like, I am going shopping now. I am preparing food now. This is what is on the meal. I had to do all of those things because what I had to learn was that I needed to regulate my blood sugar, that I couldn't. And that was a big thing. I haven't shared enough about my journey in this world. Sometimes I had lack of resources. Like there were times when I jokingly, hyperbolically say I was a starving artist, but there are other times when I was literally a starving artist and I didn't have access to any level of calories and food. And that was normal for me. So having blood sugar on a roller coaster of like sometimes feast and sometimes famine was normal but not healthy for me. And I had to learn like, no, like you're not supposed to do that. That is socially and biologically unacceptable. You're supposed to have groceries and food available to you at all times and be able to make good choices about whether you're eating a protein, a fat, or a carb in what depending upon what your body needs in those moments. That was a level of self-advocacy that I had to grow into because I had been not even at that level of socioeconomic capacity. So I had to learn food prep and taking better care of myself. I also needed to learn about sleep hygiene. This is something that was totally, no doctors taught me about it, but as I started to learn and read more about epilepsy, because I had nocturnal seizures, and that was a big thing that really what motivated me the most to seek medical help and have pharmaceutical intervention was like I could not actually sleep. And when you cannot sleep, like your brain can only go so long. And it's, you really start to have like diminished cognitive function and feel like you can't be alive anymore if you can't sleep. It's like a very torment difficulty to have to experience. So I had to learn because in my earlier years, when I had an apartment, I told you it was a tiny apartment. I had one room, like so I had like my bed because we were joking about parakeets and the parakeets that I had, they were so out of their cage, out of control, flying through my hair. That was like, yeah. And so I didn't have like, this is my, desk where I sit and do my work, and this is my bed, and this is my kitchen where I eat. I just had one room. So I sat in my bed to do everything. And you guys might think this is normal, but if you have sleep problems or insomnia, it is the worst thing to do. Your bed is supposed to be only for sleeping and sexual activities. And then you're supposed to actually sit at a table to eat your food or sit at a desk to do your reading or your computer work or whatever, so that way when you go to bed, your body says like, hey, it's time for me to actually fall asleep in bed. And also I had so much stimulation, like I had parakeets flying around my space, but I also had like all sorts of art projects and everything going on and lots of stuff. And I learned like I needed a low stimulation environment, like plain white sheets and like not a lot of crazy stuff around me. And that would help me to be able to go to sleep. And also going to sleep at the same time every night and waking up the same day, having a reasonable schedule. And also like at that time in my life, I didn't honor my body enough because I was really trying to do what humanity says is correct. Humanity says it is correct to like work, a full-time job, like from 9 to 5 during the day. And I did that, but I also needed to honor my need to make my visual artwork. So I would get up at like 5 in the morning and paint for several hours. Then I would go to my job and then I would come home on my lunch break. But instead of eating, I would paint for an hour. Then I would grab something fast to go and I would eat it while I was walking back to work, that is not healthy and you shouldn't do that. And then after work, I would come home and I would paint for several more hours. And then I would go to sleep and sleep for like 4 hours. And then I would wake up and do it all again. And I learned like that is not healthy or sustainable or good. Although a lot of artists do stuff like that, and you might paint all night or pull an all night or whatever it is, but it took a toll on me. So I had to learn like other people can do that. I cannot do that. And I had to start to get very strict with saying, like, nope, this is my bedtime and I go to bed and I do this now. And then I also have to, I didn't know about setting boundaries. I didn't know how to advocate for myself to be able to say, this is Saturday and Sunday when I do my artwork, or this is this time when I do this time, because I also had a lot of side gigs and did all sorts of other things, like I was a babysitter and a live-in nanny. Like I just did all of these things. My scheduling and my time was not always my own, and I didn't know how to set those boundaries. So I had to learn how to create healthy habits for being able to even get enough rest, and that wasn't being irresponsible. That was like the epitome of being responsible. And then here is the really important thing that I had to learn about. So people have to just compare this to their own journey. But I took pharmaceutical anti-epilepsy drugs for like 7 or 8 years, and I managed to find ones that were the best of a rotten group. Like they weren't that great. Like they certainly had a lot of side effects, but I took the ones that had like the least bad side effects. Because I like here's the fun story. So like they don't really disclose everything to you. They're like, try this drug, try this drug, try this drug, right? And there was one, and they're like, well, none of these other ones work for you, but try this one. And they didn't tell me that like it can make your skin fall off, literally. Like you can have an allergic reaction to that one that's so bad that it's like having third-degree burns. They didn't tell me that, but they're just like, try this one. And I did, and I, looked at the side effects of it, and then I'm like, this is terrible stuff. I was lucky because I didn't have very bad skin reaction. I just had a slight rash. So that was like, of all of the bad, reactions and everything like that, I'm like, okay, fine. I will take the medicine that gives me a slight rash, and that just live with that for 8 years or whatever. So yeah, that was what I did, and also like it made me not as sharp mentally, definitely had a tranquilizing effect. And mostly it diminished my emotional vibrancy, my feeling of heart connection to other people, my creativity, even though I still, painted like a maniac, painted all sorts of different things during those 8 years, but I didn't feel as engaged with life. Like everything was definitely like through a diminished filter, but it helped me to be able to stabilize my brain to take those things. But what the most transformative thing on my healing journey was access to CBD, which is called cannabidiol. It's an aspect of cannabis. So I came from New York State, where it was prohibition. It was illegal to have any level of cannabis, which is why it was so funny when I would go to the police station to get the key, and I was just the most law-abiding citizen ever, and I never did anything illegal, especially not right beforehand. Definitely not. You know what I'm talking about. But no, so I came from that world where in prohibition, cannabis or marijuana was looked at as this illicit, naughty thing to do and very secretive. And I remember reading about, it was a very profoundly epileptic little girl named Charlotte Figi. I think she's passed on. I think that she didn't have a very long life, but she uplifted a lot of people, because what happened was they found out this one particular strain of cannabis had pure CBD in it, and it took away her intractable seizures. And it was a very, very hard product to find. So now there's CBD everywhere. Like you can get CBD dog treats, and you can buy CBD tinctures at the gas station, and you can buy CBD vape pens and all these things. It's like $5. But back then, no one had heard of it. A bottle for a month's supply cost like $300, which was a lot of money. And you definitely couldn't grow it where I lived in New York State. So I made a choice. I was like, I am going to get off of pharmaceutical medications. I'm going to get CBD and I'm going to grow my own CBD plants. And I even was starting to learn about the benefits of raw cannabis juicing. So that because it's anti-inflammatory, and in seizures, I was dealing with a lot of brain inflammation and also vascular inflammation. So the raw juice is not psychoactive. Both of these products are really not something that people take recreationally to feel, an elevated or psychedelic state. They're really about neurological putting you on like evenness and keeping you in a state of homeostasis. So I read all about those things. I self-educated and I was like, this sounds like what I need to do, but it's illegal in my state. So the biggest thing was I jumped off of the diving board and I moved to California. And I did not have a lot of good social support in doing that because my doctors all said, like, you're not allowed to do this. Like when you are an epilepsy patient, they tell you, like, take this pill and then take this pill and then take this for the rest of your life. Like they tell you, like you are going to have to take this for forever. You will never not take this medicine. And that is its own form of indoctrination. And of course, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy for a lot of people. They also, like, I have to tell you guys this, like, they gave me a very low prognosis. You all know me now, and I'm very vibrant as an artist. I'm very articulate. Clearly, I live independently. I do everything that everybody should do, including I drive my car on the highway and, I have a whole professional life and everything like that. But at the time that these doctors saw me when I had like a lot of brain dysregulation and uncontrolled seizures, they were pretty much just like, look, like, go on disability, like live with your parents who are, Debbie's parents, live with family members, have a kind of small existence, like have a very small, a shoebox sized existence. And when they told me, because they also like, they thought that I would not have very many intellectual gifts, like they really like kind of discarded me. Like they thought that I would never be able to have a job or to make a contribution into the world or to be professional in some way. And when they told me these things, I remember thinking like, I don't want that to be my life. I was like, no, like I want to be an artist and I want to put my paintings in galleries and I want to teach people about the flying rainbow lasagna. Like, I don't want to just be like in bed and, incapacitated and not able to do things. So they gave me a very limited possibility for what my future could be. And I remember rejecting it. And I was like, I didn't say it with my words, but inside I was like, oh no, like F that. F that. That's not what I'm going to do. And so that was why I researched all about these other alternatives. And that was when I started to find out about cannabis from other patients. And that was when I made that choice. And so, of course, when I said to doctors, like, oh, so Dr. So and so, I'm going to stop taking my anti epilepsy medicine. I'm going to drink nothing but raw cannabis juice. And he was like, you are not allowed to do that. Like, don't. And I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway. And same thing with family members. And they were like, that's irresponsible. You can't do that. You have to stay, go to your doctor, listen to what your doctor says, and stay on that medication. And I was like, nope, not going to do it. And so it was actually a very big deal for me to be able to work, to earn enough money to move myself across the country, like, to get the moving expenses to move myself across the country. And I moved to Northern California, which is a place that is, very well known for its large, abundant cannabis farms. And before I moved there, I actually connected with a good community of people that were, again, like, I was totally out of the closet. They knew I was a walk-in. They knew that I was having brain problems, and they knew that I did not know how to navigate the world. Like, I didn't know how to make a clothing Etsy shop or run a business or any of that stuff. So like, to their credit, like they allowed me to live with them. I paid rent sporadically. Sporadically is a nice way of saying it. All right, like, because I did not have steady income at all. So they were and they were, decades older than me. They were very parental towards me. And they were like, yes, like they recognized that I was regulating my brain and, drinking raw cannabis juice and just kind of like trying to get up to a functionality that most other people already had in their lives. So I was very, very blessed to have some good people that were my landing pad. I had a good spot to land when I got to Northern California, but it still took me like 3 years 3 years of saturating my body with the cannabis and with the CBD, and to be able to start to learn and really remember, have the foundation and remember everything that I was learning. Because up until that point, so this is like I moved in 2013. Up until that point, I wasn't a professor yet. I didn't yet have the ability to create a curriculum and remember what I wanted to say from class to class. Because every time I would have seizures, it would be all disruptive, and I wouldn't be able to remember what I wanted to say and articulate it to a group. So once I started to get the right medicines and started to calm down my brain from overactivity, that was when I was able to do a couple of things. I started to create my curriculum and build a student body and like really um, present my work seriously or formally, and also to teach myself music. Because up until that point, I loved music and I had the piano and I was always trying to learn, but I couldn't do it because I was in so much neurological disruption all the time. So as soon as I started taking the CBD tinctures, that was when I was able to play not just with the left hand or the right hand, but I started to be able to play with both hands because I had a lot of difficulty with regulating both of my hemispheres of my brain. And also to start to comprehend music notes, like what is a C sharp or what is a chord or any of those things. So I did self-education about that. And I also had to learn a lot as I was growing my own garden to be able to make my raw cannabis juice. I had to learn about like what are microbes and how does microbes in the soil make your plants grow? And why do you have to have microbes in your microbiome in your body? Like I didn't know anything about the body. I didn't know anything about how important microbes were. And then once I learned that, I was like, wow, like these bodies are pretty amazing. I think I've been looking down on the body as if it's not something that's this complete miracle. And now that I know more about it, I'm just totally blown away by how complex and amazing it is. So it still took me like 3 years in that situation. And that was when Heliana helped me. And she taught me that my navel was an important part of my body, that at one point, food came in here, then later food goes in here. But I didn't know that from the beginning. So yeah, she helped me to be able to more fully integrate into my body and to comprehend what gestation was, how this body was formed, and what is the optimum way to even take care of a body. And I remember when I had that session with her, that was when one of the first times that I was able to see out of both of my eyes. And I had binocular vision and I was able to actually like see the world. And it was a transformative moment. And that neural connection grew and strengthened. So she helped me to integrate more, and then that neural connection got even better. Like because then I started to be able to really see the world and really be a part of the world. So to characterize this, for a very long time in my journey, I wasn't really a part of the world. I was kind of only a little bit in my body. I was only a little bit a part of human society. I was only participating a fraction of what I actually could do. And it took a lot for me to be able to fully share myself in the world. So what happened after getting more neurological stabilization and living, in relative seclusion in Northern California for a couple of years, I learned like the climate wasn't ideal. And also I wasn't really finding like the bohemian arts community and the people that I wanted to share my artwork with. Like I was in isolation, like didn't really find a lot of people. So I knew I wanted to move to Southern California, and had a very bumpy road to be able to find where I currently live in Ojai. But this ended up being a great community for me because I could wear all of my rainbow pattern clothes and no one gave me side eye. People instead, they were like, thumbs up, like we like your rainbow clothes. I was like, I'm in the right place, right? And also, I intentionally found places to live that are within walking distance to the main part of our town. Because when I lived in Northern California, like I was far from everything. I didn't drive that much. And it was because when you have seizures, you have to make sure that you're not going to have a seizure when you're on the road. So it was always just like a big deal for me to drive any place. And I would always tell people, I'd be like, look, I'm driving from here to here. Like I will tell you when I get there, like even if it was just a couple of miles away, because you had to be that was, part of being responsible as a person with limited abilities. That was how limited my life was. But when I came to Southern California, I engineered my life so that I could have a good life with whatever I had going on biologically. So this is what I can share with other people that are going through any kind of chronic thing in their life. I made sure that I had a place where I could grow my plants so I could make my fresh, cannabis juice, where I could be within walking distance to be able to get to the food room, the grocery store, and other things that are necessary. And that was also when I started to teach my classes via Zoom. Actually, I started my classes via Zoom all the way back in like 2013 or so. So I just want you all to know I was Zooming before Zoom was a thing, before 2020, before the pandemic, before everybody went, what is it called? Remote. I was Zooming right away. Yeah, so I legitimized myself and called myself Professor Aurora, and I would set up these classes via Zoom. And I built a life for myself. And what that took was a lot of belief in myself, because, like I said, the doctors had given me a very minimal prognosis, and even family members didn't really believe in me that I could become something. So I felt, again, like I had a lot to prove to the world, that I was like the equal to other people. And so, anybody who's dealing with chronic illness or disability, you might really relate to this, because people might think that you don't have something to contribute. They might think or presume erroneously that you're unintelligent or that you don't have cognitive abilities. I mean, like, just because you can't drive, or just because you might have, like, sometimes people have, I had difficulty with scheduling. That meant like if I said, like, I will do something on Tuesday, my intention is, of course, to participate on Tuesday, but I might have a seizure on Monday night that would make me incoherent for several days. And then I can't do what I need to do on Tuesday. So I needed to learn that traditional work assignments that are based upon the clock and, the chronological calendar, I was much better with self-directed stuff. If it was something like, get this done in a week, I would be great, because if I had a seizure, I could have a seizure and then take time and recover and then get the thing done that needed to get done. So what I'm trying to say to anybody who's in a similar position, people have so much to contribute. Like, I know that everybody has something that's value of who they are in their self. My words aren't really articulating this well, but like, you have value to being here. People don't always respect that value, and it doesn't always come out in a way that is convenient to the workplace. But it's time for us to begin to integrate people that have different levels of ability and mobility who can still make a contribution. So when I said I didn't want to be on disability, it's not a diminishment of anybody who has a social stipend or anything like that. I was basically saying, like, I have something to contribute to the world, and I can do more than just receive a monthly stipend payment. I can do stuff. And I think corporations and workplaces are only starting to comprehend this, because it can relate to people that have the seizure disorders or cognitive disorders, or who are on the neurodivergent spectrum, because not everybody can deal with the level of stimulation that a workplace represents. Like, I still struggle a lot with places where it is overly bright. Like, I can't go in certain stores that have too many of the fluorescent lights inside, because the light is a trigger for me. I don't go to places that have flashing lights. And that includes places that are like, I call them raves. No one does a rave anymore, but like festivals, the festival situation, because it seems great because it's music and I love music and I love dancing, but it's very, very loud. And there are a lot of flashing, uncontrolled lights. And I can't be in that environment, because all of those things are triggers. And also, I can't be up all night. I cannot stay up all night dancing. I'm like, I need to go to bed by 10:30 p.m. And everyone is like, that is when the party is just getting started. And I'm like, I know, but my brain needs to sleep. So none of that works for me. And working for a corporation, they might say, like, you need to become here at this time, and then you will work at this time. But they might be able to accommodate someone like me, where it's like, well, maybe I need to sleep an extra hour because I had neurological disruption last night, but I can still do this job. So yeah, so basically, to put it into a complete sentence here, I engineered my life in the way that I was capable of doing, to be able to be professional, share my gifts and talents with the world, earn money and make a contribution, and to do what I could with my levels of ability. So like, I could walk a mile to town and walk a mile home, but at that, like now I walk on my treadmill all day long and it's no problem. I might walk like 8 miles in a day, but back then I wasn't able to do that. I didn't have literally the connection from my brain to the bottoms of my feet to be able to make them go and be active on that level. So but I could walk to town in order to get my groceries, or I could do other things. But then there were some things that were still very difficult and that were a limitation for me. And I still deal a little bit with the spinal cord injury. Like I wouldn't want to have to carry 50 pounds on my back. Like you go through wilderness training, you can carry 50 pounds on your back. I should not do that. But if I had to get 50 pounds somewhere, like I'd get a rolling cart or I'd get creative about it. So I learned I can get creative, I can advocate for myself, but I can do things, I can do a lot. And so the happy, good aspect of my sharing here is that from doing what I can do, my abilities have increased. Everything I always did as much as I do, like with my dance. Initially, I would dance mostly with my torso and my hands from a seated position. And I did all of my dancing that I could do, grooving with the music, but just really not connecting to my lower body that much. And then it was over many years of doing that I started to be able to get more of dance to go all the way down to my feet. And then it was many years of doing that until I finally wasn't dancing like in a seated position in a chair, but instead, I'll tilt down my little camera so that you can see like I have I don't have it down because I was cleaning my floor today. That's my dance pad. I usually have like a big dance pad that's down on the ground, and I do all sorts of like floor work, rolling around. But that was not how I initially could do it, but I gained the ability to do that through concerted effort. And I always did supplemental exercises, like whatever I could do to be able to build my muscles, build my strength, and build my endurance. And through doing what I could do more. And then there's always, if you want to know, like, what was the secret ingredient, like add a sprinkle of supernatural something. Because a lot of this, you would call it like divine intervention, supernatural, angelic, whatever it was. Like there were a lot of things that happened in the rectification of my body that are not explicable according to medical science. And I would attribute that to like divine intervention and supernatural things, and also my own highest self intervening and making it possible for me to do things basically so that I could do my job here in the world. Like I need to be able to make this artwork, make this music, share my dance, inspire other people. And it was necessary for me to figure out, how to get around roadblocks and dead ends inside of my own body to make it possible. So I never gave up on myself. I always knew that I would be able to do these things, even when people around me didn't necessarily believe in me or respect my path or what I was capable of. So for anyone out there who's watching this, who's dealing with, it might be recovery from an injury like a car accident, or like I said, chronic disease, or something that you've had for your whole entire life, please know that supernatural healing, it's available to everyone. It's not just for me. These being consistent with your own efforts and the things that are within your capacity, keep doing those things. And then really like the cosmic infrastructure, like it meets you more than halfway. So I didn't tell you what I ended up not being ketogenic in my diet. I learned all about it, but that's actually a very, very difficult metabolic state to maintain. Even though people nowadays, they all do it because it's like a diet to be slender, but it's actually very, very difficult to do. So I was never fully ketogenic, but I ended up doing something that is called low glycemic and very low carbohydrates and no refined sugars. So I got rid of breads and pastas and rice and all of those things. In truth, they were never very appealing to me. I was always like, that's the thing that I would always eat the last. Like I was always the most interested in the protein on my plate, but people would always put all this other stuff there, and that was considered normal. But I just learned like that stuff is not that good for my body. I know, because if most people, if you just put down like, here's your piece of chicken, they would be like, where's the rice? Or like, where are the potatoes? Like, where's the something? but it always felt just like dead food or just extras to me and nothing that great. So it wasn't that much. I wasn't missing out on that much at releasing those carbohydrates. And then when I say low glycemic, what I would do is if I eat carbohydrates, I would pair it with a fat and a protein. So I learned like if I just had a lot of strawberries or a lot of fruit, that is like rocket fuel for my brain, and my brain would explode. It would be like way too much energy for my brain all at once. But if I put it with the fat in a coconut milk or almond butter, and if I ate it with some grilled chicken at the same time, then it would be more slow in my body and wouldn't be such a trigger for seizures. So I had to really learn about these food combinations, and that was a level of advocacy that seemed luxurious to the viewpoint of myself as just a total otherworldly person who came here and was really a starving artist. And I ate what people put in front of me because I was like, this is food and it's going to sustain me. So that it took a long journey to be able to know, like, I can't just eat that way. And also I had, this is a fun Aurora story. I had to learn that the food that they give away for free at like food banks is like not very valuable, good food. That you might see this as a no-brainer because like it's a box of mac and cheese. It has no nutritional value in there. Like you will eat that food, but it is not going to sustain you. So I learned, I was like, wow, that's so weird that the food that they give away for free is like not actually food. And it doesn't actually sustain you because I still feel like empty ow inside, even after I ate that food. Yes. So, because it might appear to be like a person is so whatever, like having aristocratic airs. Like, no, I don't think I will be eating your food that comes from the food pantry. It's not like that at all. It is because it is not truly nourishing food, and it is only for like a band-aid to get by for a few days. You cannot live on that food. So and now food banks are getting better in terms of being able to offer like fresh vegetables and more protein and stuff like that, but none of that was when I was experiencing like artistic levels of starving artist poverty. Uh choosing the right foods and making the right food combinations, and then also not letting myself get too hungry. That was a big thing also. So for me, I would set up my day where if I knew I was going someplace, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go to that place, but I'm going to bring this, and I'm going to bring this, and I'm going to bring this, and I'm going to eat along the way, because I couldn't be casual about food the way other people might be. You might like eat your toast in the morning and then just hop out the door with a cup of coffee and be like, yeah, I'll be hungry later, but I'll pick something up on the road. I could not do that because I couldn't just buy something that was easily available because it was probably full of a lot of breads and carbohydrates that I don't eat. And also, I couldn't wait that long. Sometimes I needed to have food right away. And my body would say, no, like you can't wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes or drive to a store or wait an hour and then prepare that food and get home. So I had to learn. I would always travel with like dried fruit, and I would always travel with juice, and I would always travel with almond butter, peanut butter, blah, 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 nuts, all these different types of things. And for me, getting out of the house was like a big deal then. Like, I would have to like to go through a whole procedure and check on all these different things and get myself all packed up, and then I'm ready to get out of the house. So that was like my life was not casual. I had to be very specific about all the things that I did. But now like, I've been here for 23 years at this point. And my brain health is really good, and I've been neurologically stable, meaning I haven't had seizures for a pretty long amount of time. Like I think it's been over a year and a half since I've had any kind of overt seizure activity, and it was very minimal. It didn't wipe my memory or anything like that. Um, Now I'm much more like the way that probably most people live their life. Like, I don't treat my body badly, but I can be casual and be like, oh yeah, I can just hop out the door and I can whatever, buy something along the way. I'll find a little something. And also, a lot of stores now carry much better options. That now it's more a part of people's lives. A lot of people do low carb, paleo, keto, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, oh, like the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, like this is a thing in the store and it's for me because I got used to making all of my own food. So yeah, I learned all the recipes. This is what you also should. I learned very quickly And I'm very obsessive also. So as soon as I had to learn recipes, I watched the Food Network obsessively and I learned everything. And I learned it all and I did it all. And then I'm like, oh, coconut flour crust pizza. I'll make my own pizza. Almond flour cookies. I'll make my own cookies. I'll make my own this. I'll make my own that. I didn't eat anything that was prepared by the stores after that. I did it all myself. And then I remember the first time that, because that was also like in the stores when there was not even really like an organic section, there would just be like a few organic things on the, everybody just ate regular conventional food. There wasn't even organic food. And then I remember the first time that I was like, wow, like there was whatever, like ketogenic Pop-Tart type of things. And I was like, what? This is a thing. They made a thing. And I read the ingredients. I'm like, I can eat these ingredients. So yeah, my world expanded as other people started to eat the way that I do. And now I love it. Like now sometimes I go to parties and they'll put out like this beautiful it looks like a cheesecake or whatever, and usually I'd be like, oh, like that's not for me because it's probably got a lot of sugar in it, and they'd be like, no, like this is a raw vegan fruit blah 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 that is sweetened only with fruit and has a nut crust. And I'm like, these are my people, like I can actually eat this stuff. So I'm so happy to see that humanity has leveled up, because here's the real deal. Like, okay, a lot of this stuff, like nobody should really be eating this stuff. Like the traditional ingredients and the things that are in a lot of cakes and cookies, they're really just like, you can survive that. You can eat it. You will not die, but it's really not optimum food for anybody to be eating. So I'm very happy humanity has leveled up into like these things that are much better practices for everybody's body. Because also when people have get-togethers, they're like, yes, like here's the giant sugary cake that no one should be eating. And it's like, no, like don't do that. That's not actually helping anyone. Please serve something that is better for all of us. So I think that now it's been 20 years. Here are the things that I've noticed in the past 20 years of my health journey and the society that I'm in. The stigma against cannabis is going away, because that also used to be a big thing. All the doctors and family members that were like, you're a drug addict and a hippie and bad for taking that stuff. And now they sell it at the gas station, and it's the most normal thing in the world. Like I actually remember that first time too, that I found like this little thing. It was like a little carbonated soda that had CBD, and I'm like, a CBD soda. Like look at that, like in your face. That is right there. It's very normalized at this point, and I'm not some kind of a drug fiend or weirdo. By taking it, little kids take it. People take CBD gummies all the time, and a lot of the family members, they are now probably like in their older years, but a lot of them are taking some form of cannabis in their older years to diminish like aches, pains, get to sleep better or whatever. So now they're all on board. It just took them a long amount of time. So the stigma against cannabis went far away. And then also everybody has moved against the refined foods, the processed foods, the processed sugars, and specifically genetically modified information, that's what got me out of the regular food supply. Just recognizing how much corn and corn syrup and corn products were going into things, everything, including salad dressing. Like I had to learn, because I was very innocent, and I was like, I like the salad dressing, but then I had to read it and be like, this salad dressing is not for me anymore. And then I had to learn how to make salad dressing that is acceptable. So now what I do is I have like a few trusted brands that I buy that I know contain only good stuff, and all of them are more expensive than the conventional regular stuff. And I have just calibrated upward that is how much a positive food product is going to cost for me. So I don't shop. Again, this might seem luxurious or what's the word, entitled. It might appear entitled, but I have to make these choices about, like, regular flour is much less expensive than almond flour, but I'm not going to buy wheat flour because I know it's not optimum for my body. I'm not going to buy the, corn syrup, laden, prepared products. And then also, like, I don't really eat out either, even though I know that is a celebratory thing in a part of a culture. It's supposed to be fun and good, but mostly the products that are offered in restaurants, I know, contain a lot of ingredients that are not optimum for my body. So I simply don't eat out a lot. And so then it's fine. Like if I'm going to socialize with people, I'd be like, why don't we prepare our own food? Because that way I know that it will be positive, good ingredients. And it used to be a real issue. If I ate the wrong thing, it really might give me a seizure. But now my brain is really a lot better. So I could probably survive it. but I wouldn't want to have to do that. Like if I ate a whole big giant bowl of pasta with no protein at the same time, it would probably be not optimum for my body, but I probably would not have a seizure. But still, why risk it? I don't really enjoy it that much. And same thing, like I don't really want to drink alcohol or other things like that. But it used to be like even a small amount would trigger a seizure, but I probably would survive it now. I'd be okay. But just like, you know what? It's also like when you have worked so hard, like I have worked so hard to have neurological stability and not have seizures, nothing tempts me. Nothing tastes as good to me as not having seizures. So I don't want to have cake and alcohol at a party. I don't want it. I'm like, no, my brain is so good right now. I will be so happy with just doing what I'm doing. But I don't judge others. I'm like, you know what I say? I say, eat some for me, like enjoy it. Drink some champagne and eat some cake for me. I'm very happy that you're enjoying that. But I have to just be very careful with my own body. So I would encourage everybody, if you have any kind of like allergies or dietary limitations or whatever type of stuff, like just approach it in the same way. And I also hope you know, like I have a very wonderful, I want to say a rich, abundant existence. Like I'm not like a person that only eats three things and has a very like, a poverty of experience. I'm like, no, like I eat all sorts of wonderful things, but I just do not eat conventionally. And also, I can hear someone's question. They want to know about, like, well, what about family gatherings and Thanksgiving and stuff like that? It's like, yeah, actually, those were all really, really difficult for many years when I was in social situations that I was not in control of, and when I was with family members, and a lot of them didn't know or validate what I was going through. So they made like, regular, like stovetop stuffing and regular type of foods. And they, again, maybe felt it was a sense of entitlement or socially inappropriate for me to be like, I do not eat that food. So they were not on board with it. So please comprehend and know that that's, it's not your fault. It's a limitation in other people if they can't recognize the need to make better dietary choices. And then hopefully, I think the world has leveled up a lot in recognizing like so many people have allergies and dietary limitations and things that they can't do. Like you have to respect, a person's not rejecting you if they will not eat your food. But if you come from an ethnic family, they might think that they're rejecting you. And that means like if you are Jewish, Italian, Greek, Vietnamese, Korean, and several others that I'm just not coming to my mind right now. But if you don't eat their food, they will say like, you're killing me. And I'm very sad. The guilt is real. And you will be guilted. That's what will happen.
Well, you were ahead of your time, Aurora, and just going through everything, and you really have had substantial history with every single um, alternative way that you eat, every ingredient. And yes, you're not being entitled. You really have a solid reason for every single thing. And it's amazing that you've seen strides being made in the world around you to be able to accommodate to your dietary needs, because everyone is becoming allergic to everything now. Well, it's just we're showing that we're being poisoned to everything that is intoxicating us more clearly. So I'm glad you have paved the way in your own journey so you can share it with everyone else and share that your actions have led to profound healing through everything that you have done. And it's so strong when you said, not having a seizure tastes better than this cake. It's very
Yeah.
true. You've gone through a lot to be able to be so strong. And I've witnessed you just have endless amounts of energy, and you just go on and on and on, and you help so many people and are present with so many people, and you're just healing others as well. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a warrior. Let's see what else. Yeah, just
Say
thank
one
you.
I
Yes.
will, oh, you're so welcome. I know I'm talking so much, and I don't want to only be like talking on top of you, but I forgot to mention, I do not drink caffeine. I drink decaffeinated coffee, which I know has like a small percentage of caffeine in it. But I think that was one of the big cultural things that I had to just learn. Like, this is a no-no for me. Just like alcohol, caffeine can really cause brain inflammation for me and be a seizure trigger, but it's such a normal part of our world and everybody's life. And it's normal for people to be like, invite you over for a cup of coffee or stop for a cup of coffee or coffee, coffee, coffee. And I had to learn like no, just saying no, thank you about that. But now I think that is more normal. But it used to be that coffee was like the center of so many social things, and not doing coffee was a weird thing. But I want people to know like caffeine is like not necessarily that great for the body. Like I think that coffee has some positive stuff in it, in like the antioxidant quality to it and the liver cleansing stuff. But our society uses caffeine as a normal drug that is like way it's abused, it's way abused, it's way overused. And that I'm hoping that people will kind of join me in the new world that you can be in, where like you don't drink caffeine every day. And if I drink caffeine now, it would be only like, again, like not for a positive thing. Like sometimes I have been in a situation where I have to drive late at night and I have to stay awake and be alert. I try not to put myself in those situations, but I drive a lot more now than I used to. But I will drink coffee in order to stay awake at those times. But like I want to be awake, but I don't want to have a seizure. So I'm very cautious actually about well, because I was driving back and forth to Sedona. I actually didn't get coffee. I got yerba mate because I thought like this would be like more gentle or buffered or whatever like that. But I just like to drink a few sips, I drink a little bit to kind of like stay alert on the road. So basically what I'm trying to say is caffeine is for emergency use only and is not should not be for every morning. But everybody is so, because of the sleep hygiene, because people are not getting enough sleep and they're using coffee as a compensatory mode. So I don't do that, and I will encourage this society to change so that everybody's not using the enablement crutch of coffee to deal with what is really an underlying issue of overwork and underrest.
Beautiful. Thank you for that reminder. I'll also add from my own personal experience. Well, you know that coffee is full of mold, and mold is definitely not good for you. And then also personally, I found that coffee or caffeine suppresses emotions. So based on what you're using it for, I found that for a whole week I had tons of energy. So I was just using it for anxiety. I found that it gave me kind of superhuman powers and feelings. It just made me feel good. And so I was like, oh, I don't need the energy. And then when I stopped taking it, I had all this grief pour out. Um, yeah, and I was like, well, where did that come from? And I was suppressing it. So yeah, it's very interesting. It does different things. And what's also concerning is that I will find that I have withdrawals after one day of taking it and then the next day not. And it's just one cup. Other people, depending on what ethnicity you are, you can drink tons of coffee. And Vietnamese people, like my culture, just drinks coffee all day, but I can only drink one, and just like one drink, like two shots of espresso, and then the next day I will have withdrawals not having it. So I'm very sensitive. So I'm like, that's not normal. You know, if I have a green tea, the same thing doesn't happen. So yeah, I would say it's a little more innocent. I don't know what's in coffee. Also, when I drink organic coffee, that doesn't really happen. So it's non-organic coffee, mostly Charbucks. But just something
And
to notice.
I like how you say charbucks. It is burnt. It is definitely overcooked. Like,
Yeah. So
and maybe they are adding something a little bit extra to make it a little bit extra, whatever, habituating or addictive or extra, whatever tempting. I think that literally, it's called food scientists. Their whole job is to make things appearingly delectable, and that you can't put it down and stop, and you feel compelled to eat more and more and more of it. And I wouldn't say that I'm immune to those things, but I would say that as soon as I felt those chemicals, I was like, this is not food for me. And I will also tell you that there are some things that I overtly rejected in being here that I could tell even before I ever tasted them. I was like, that is not food for a human being. And I'm talking about like fast food and things like that. So I've never drank Coca-Cola and I've never eaten at McDonald's because I knew I could just tell from the vibration of the food. I was like, I do not want to be anywhere near it. And so, yeah, I would rather not ingest than ingest those things. One more thing I want to say, like, of what has really been amazing on my healing journey exercise has always been a big part of it. And I told you there were times when I had limited mobility, meaning like I couldn't necessarily walk very many miles comfortably or move every part of my body, but I always found a way to do things. And what has been transformative for me, so now I do all of this work that's like Zoom and computer work and things like that. For many years, it meant that I would be sitting for many hours a day. And that never felt comfortable to me. I've always been very active where like, like I might paint and sit down for a few minutes, but then I'll stand up and, I mix doing both artwork and music and all sorts of things at the time. So I'm not like sitting for 3 hours at a time. And it was so liberating for me 2 years ago when I got an under desk treadmill and I started to walk while I would do these video works. And my body feels so good now. And now I'm much less carbohydrate sensitive because if I eat a fruit smoothie, I'm actually using those sugars to kind of make my body go and do stuff. And I want to normalize this in our society in the same way that I feel like I've helped to encourage taking the stigma away from cannabis. Like you can still be a total, because they used to think like if you smoke pot then you're a pothead and you do nothing. Like this was the attitude. And I hope that I'm able to exemplify to people like, no, like I use cannabis all day long, every day. And I'm a very productive and also very like grounded and, connected to reality, like productive, positive person. I'm not checked out on reality or, sleeping on a couch all the time. And then the other thing is wanting to normalize to people incorporating some form of movement into the workday. Because also, like I worked in many, from today's sharing all over the place and all my different anecdotes, and thank you for giving me that latitude. You can tell like I've worked in all sorts of different things. Like I have not had a privileged existence in being here in this world. And most of the places that I've worked, it would have been considered very inappropriate to be like, oh, like I think that I need to like stand up and do jumping jacks. They would be like, what are you doing? Like sit down and do your effing job. Like they would not be okay with that. I am hoping to change and normalize. You got a little kitty cat. No, it's a little dog. Your little dog needs to come in. That's your little guy. Want to normalize adding movement as a normal part of the workday. And that can mean like standing up and stretching at your desk or having an under desk treadmill or any of the things that people do now. And they're just starting to do this also with like childhood education. Some kids are wiggly in their chairs because it's actually not normal to make kids have to sit for many hours a day, like listening to a teacher drone on. So now they have a lot of things that are like wiggle chairs and things where kids can kind of like kick their feet and stuff like that. And I'm like, this humane. This is positive to how we are as humans, because sometimes it is presented as like, neurodivergent or non-neurotypical for people to need these accommodations. And maybe those are the canary in the coal mine, the more sensitive levels of our species. But I think it's positive for everyone. So yes, let us all incorporate more movement and flexibility and physical embodiment in the productive work activities that we do, because I still get everything done. Like I still do, optimize my Shopify and do my emails and do my everything, blah, blah, blah. But I do it while I'm walking. And what I have found, it's not just metabolic and carbohydrate use. And it also really does help regulating my left brain and my right brain, because like my left foot and my right foot and my left brain and my right brain, like it really does something neurologically to me that helps me and helps me to stay focused and helps me to be in my body. So I want to put that out there, and hopefully people will begin to advocate for themselves too, either in a remote job or in the workplace, a physical office that you go to, because I think that is the end result of all of this. Like if we advocate for what we want for health, then the corporate or professional environment world must accommodate us. And that even includes what are the snacks that are in the snackateria. Because it used to be always like, here's your Skittles and your chocolates, and that will keep you, and your caffeine, and that will keep your employees going. And a lot of people are now like, no, like I actually need like roasted almonds and like beef jerky, or, something that's not 100% sugar and caffeine to keep the employees going. So advocate for yourself as much as you can and be socially appropriate and not get fired. But that you're a valuable person and not just a disposable object to be used and exploited and thrown away by the corporate infrastructure.
Thank you for all of your help, Aurora. I think you do have sprinkles of supernatural all around you. You've had a lot of divine guidance and help through the decades you've been here. I know Source is wanting to help you on your journey, and it's obvious why. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Yes, I have to give a huge amount of credit. Like, I'm not affiliated with a particular earthly religion, but very much with divine consciousness, with just pure God. Got to give a lot of credit to God for all of the uh, um, beyond medical science um, fulfillments and improvements that I've made in my life. I never gave up on me. I kept on believing in me. And also I got a lot of help from upstairs to be able to be here in this body and be as active and positive and healthy in my body as I am. And like, I hope you can also tell, like, I'm definitely more youthful than my chronological age. And none of that is by accident. Like, it's all very, very intentional through all of the different things that I do as esoteric practices and also cultivating physical health practices.
We just celebrated a birthday this month, two birthdays, yours and Cheeky's, right?
Yes. So yes. So my day of walking in
Oh, look
is
at that.
October. Yes. So my physical body birthday is July 26th. That's when this body was actually born. But October 8th is when I walked into this body. And it wasn't that much of a happy day for many years because the circumstances were having brain trauma and the death of the previous occupant. Like, there were a lot of really sad things that were involved with that day. So it took me actually many years to feel like I could celebrate on that day and be grateful for the positive things. And one of the things that I did 7 years ago, that was when I adopted my dog. And so I made like that Cheeky Adoption Day is an awesome day. And I didn't talk enough about Cheeky. You guys all know her as a super cute, interdimensional companion that goes with me everywhere. But Cheeky has been a real part of my healing as well. I initially adopted her with the full intention of training her as a service animal. And I did a whole 2 year long training program with her to teach her not just basic obedience, but how to do seizure alert. And, people look at small dogs who are not like a German Shepherd and they think like, how can this small dog be a service animal in any way? Because mostly people think about a golden retriever or a German Shepherd. Those are dogs that would be more for like a guide dog for the visually impaired or for mobility issues or for, some other like to retrieve objects or open doors, something that would require a larger animal. But it's not about the size of the dog in terms of being able to train them for some of these different service requirements. It's about their personality. So I specifically, I want to say I dated various different dogs before I chose to marry Cheeky. But they didn't all have the personality of being like attentive, emotionally receptive, loyal, and willing to work. Like, some dogs are cool, but they're just like fun, playful dogs, and they want to jump in puddles and just have fun. And that's great. And they should be a family dog. So yeah, I adopted Cheeky and we did a whole 2 year long training program. And I was able to teach her about the different biochemical signatures and changes that happen in my body that are right before a seizure. Like, when your body chemistry changes before you're going to have a seizure, and it can make you smell different. It can make your saliva smell different. It can make your heart rate different. So if you're able to communicate that to an animal and get them to then tell you when you're about to have something happen in your body, It can be incredibly empowering. So I developed a great rapport with Cheeky. I did this whole training regimen with her, and she did really great for me for several years as a formal seizure alert dog. And she alerted for me many times. And then also she would not only alert, like tell me when a seizure is coming, but she would respond to the seizure. And I always had my rescue medicine is a CBD that is like, a sublingual. So I would always have that either with me or with her, so that way, like the whole idea is if you are going to have a seizure, if you're in public or something like that, that your dog would tell you something is going to happen, that you could either sit down or go to where it is safe or lie down, and that then you would have the medication that you need to be able to bring you out of a seizure. And that was my life for a long time. Like I'm here on a cosmic mission, but seizures would really slow me down or stop me in my tracks. And Cheeky was very noble and heroic and gave me levels of freedom that I wouldn't have had otherwise, because like I was able to go to some conferences and places. I had wonderful people who drove me there because I wouldn't drive like a long distance at that time in my life because I didn't have brain stability to do it. But being able to like, Cheeky is great. Like we can go on a van, we can go on a bus, we can go in a friend's car, and I can go someplace and do something. And she can tell me if my brain is good or tell me if I need to, protect myself and go where it's safe. So that was healing in and of itself to have that level of companionship and support. And then when my brain got better, and I remember there was one time when I had went a whole year without having seizures. And I told Cheeky, I'm like, well, it looks like you're out of a job because like my brain is doing so good that you don't have to be always focused on whether I'm going to have a seizure or not. And that was actually very wonderful because she's always been very outgoing and social. But when you have a service animal, they have to be on their task. They can't be going around and like hugging people and socializing and being cute and everything. So as my brain got better, she could be off duty. So now she is really in semi-retirement or almost always off duty. And that means that she has been able to experience life as like a dog and have fun. And she loves to go around town, and she has a whole group of people in all the different shops here that know her, and she goes and visits them every day, and she hugs them and they pet her and hug her. So it's really wonderful. Like my healing and becoming kind of not beyond seizures, but they're very under control, has given her a lot of freedom because she is kind of in retirement. And so she's able to just live a fun, socially positive existence. But she's still very focused on me. Like we go everywhere together. She's still very focused on me. And I bet that if she ever sensed that anything was going awry in my biochemistry, she would alert to me again. But she's also like recognized like it's been a long time since I've had anything like that go on, so she can kind of relax about it a lot. But she is always listening for me and my tone of voice. She's always watching my behavior and what's going on. She's always kind of like attending to me and making sure that I'm doing okay. And as long as I'm doing okay, she's like, okay, great. Like I'm just gonna go snooze and have a little, rest in my dog bed, or I will, whatever, play outside and chew on my bone outside. But just want you to know, why do I bring this up? Animals are an incredible part of the healing journey. Having that unconditional love, having her there when I was in distress, and she was with me through many times when I was recovering from seizures and when I was in distress, helped me immensely. Like not just the comfort of knowing that she would alert to me if something happened, but that she would be there with me in the aftermath of like, if you have seizures, what it feels like afterwards is often like emotional instability. Sometimes you might feel like even fear or terror. You're not afraid of something, but you just feel sometimes like uncontrolled anxiety or crying, or so it could be so many different things, or mental confusion. There are just a lot of things sometimes it's in the hours or the days after you have a seizure that you can feel very untethered. And then having an animal companion there to be with you and give you that type of just like love and support, totally healing. So if you guys are kind of looking at the commonalities of what I'm talking about, like the initial healer that helped me in the first couple of years that I was here, just her healing touch was very transformative for me. Heliana in helping me to have that comprehension of what it is to gestate in a body and the Reiki work that she did, profound. And then my dog, like my dog hugging her and having her kiss me and lick me and sit on my lap and care about me. And when we travel, we go someplace together, she's always like right by my side or sitting on my lap. That is very healing to me also. So it's beyond just diet or biochemistry or tinctures and things like that. It's also the energy of love, compassion, care, body support, whatever you would call it, when people hug you. That's really big.
What a beautiful, happy ending.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing your story and Chiki's story.
absolutely. Thank you for um wanting to know about this and for giving me an opportunity to be able to talk about it and share. Because I know that we're wrapping up. I'll also just say this in conclusion, because I haven't really identified with or defined myself as a person that has a disease or a limitation in the body, but it's a part of my life. Like you guys mostly see the facet that I show to you, which is my artistry and my professionalism. People don't even necessarily know the mountain that I've climbed to get to this level, and also all the things that I do to sustain this and to keep this going. But it's important for me to be able to share this and to vocalize this because I want other people might be in a similar situation. Your doctor might have given you a limited prognosis, or maybe the people in your life don't know that you can do more and that you can grow and be healed and be whole and become the person that you're supposed to be. And I want you to know you can. You can do it. Whatever is your thing that is biological, that might be an obstacle, it doesn't stop you. You find a way to do what you need to do, even in spite of it.
You are the shining example of success and self-reliance and survival and thrival. How do you say that? Just thriving.
Survival.
Earth
That's it.
thrival.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much for showing us the way, Aurora.
You're welcome.